Go back to the manor. Harry instructed June to arrange a room for Laura. Although it was a robot, in order to hide her identity, he still had to give an individual room according to normal circumstances. Although she didn't need to rest or sleep, after the energy batteries in her body were used up, she still needed to charge them. Of course, when charging, she couldn't pull out an electrical wire from her body and insert it into the socket in front of everyone. That would scare people silly. However, if she really wanted to charge it, she did not need physical contact to charge it. There was a wireless charging device in Laura's body. She only needed to install a wireless charging device in her room, and she would be able to charge it at any time. This way, it would be easier to hide her identity. The manor was too large, and sometimes some people would come to visit. If it could not let others know, it would be best to not expose her identity. After all, this was Harry's hidden trump card. After June settled down Laura, she turned around and prepared to look for Harry to see if there were any other instructions. Half of the road was blocked by Juniper. The child pouted in dissatisfaction and said, "Sister June, didn't I ask you to think of a way to chase her away? Why did you bring her back? You actually arranged a room for her personally?" June smiled and said, "Why do you have such a bad impression of Laura? You just met, right?" Juniper said, "I don't know why either. Anyway, I just feel that this Lara is a little abnormal." June thought that this was abnormal. Even if you racked your brain, you wouldn't have thought that Lara was actually a robot. But this was still Mr. Parker's secret. It was better not to say it out loud. Moreover, Juniper was a child. It would be even worse if she said it out loud. Hence, she smiled and said, "Don't be conflicted. Lara is actually quite good, and she knows how to do everything. She's here to work too. There's nothing like what you think. You should get along well with her in the future." After saying that, she patted Juniper's little head and left. Juniper muttered a few words of dissatisfaction and could only helplessly return to her room. Harry looked at the documents that June had helped him deal with recently, and only then he realized that he was really not qualified. As the boss, so many assets were all left to June to manage alone. Seeing June push open the door and come in, he was very embarrassed and said, "It has been hard on you for this period of time. I didn't even know that there were so many tasks that needed to be completed." June respectfully said, "It is my duty to share the burden with the young master. There is no need for the young master to be like this." Harry shook his head and said, "You can't say that. I'm too willful. Oh, right. Is there anything troublesome?" He had just read a few documents on the table. There were still a few stacks of documents on the table. He believed that June's workload was very high. Hearing Harry's question, June thought for a moment and said, "Yes, there is one. Sir, you just transferred $50 billion to the Research Institute. Now there is less than $60 billion left in the accounts." "Oh, is there anything you need money for?" Harry nodded and said, "Yes, didn't you ask everyone to go on vacation on the set? They are coming back soon. Director Manson contacted me and told me that he had an idea for a new script when he went out to play. He wants to start shooting a new movie and needs funds." June picked up a document that had been left unprocessed and said. Harry raised his eyebrows. Ever since the second movie was sold at a super high price, Harry, who had earned several $1 billion, was in a very good mood. He gave the entire production crew a vacation and went on a paid vacation. Now that he heard that they were all coming back, he thought of the beautiful celebrities in his company, especially Celeste and Issa Ivy. It had been a long time since they last saw each other. Now, the director Manson had a new idea to shoot a movie. Harry felt that it was good to strike while the iron was hot. With the two previous movies being sold, his reputation had increased. The third movie was about to start should also have some expectations for the audience. He asked, "How much money do you need?" Director Manson said that he will invest a lot in this production. He will use the latest movie filming technology, 3D effects, 124K HD, and the quality of 1224 frames to create an unprecedented movie. He will create a miracle and record in the history of the movie. Harry almost spat out his tea when he heard that. What the hell? What kind of miracle and record was that? It would be great if he didn't make such a big deal out of it. Director Manson had filmed 2 movies, and his heart had become wild. No wonder he did not tell him personally, but told him through June. It was probably because he wanted June to test his attitude. He was afraid that if he opened his mouth, Harry would kick him out without saying a word. Harry secretly rolled his eyes. "How much money does he want?" June said, The initial budget is $2 billion. How much? Although the production budget for movies was higher than the previous ones, $2 billion was definitely a top movie. To Harry, $2 billion was actually not a lot of money. The key was that he was working all over the place, using money everywhere. It was like a dam breaking. The money kept rushing out and he could not stop it. The income and profits of several industries could not stop him. He still had the money to film a movie for Manson. $2 billion was really not enough for him now. Seeing Harry's slightly troubled expression, June said, "Sir, why don't I tell Director Manson to suspend the filming of the new movie?" Harry thought about it and shook his head. "No, let's do it. It's only $2 billion, right? Now that I can't take it out, it doesn't mean that others don't have it." "Sir, what do you mean?" "It's financing. There are no exclusive investors in movies nowadays. Aren't they all partners of a few investors? Let's talk to Randy and Harvey. They're probably very willing to pay," Harry said with a smile. Harry had transferred a lot of money to the previous 2 movies, and Harvey's family had made a lot of money. Randy had also made some money, but it was Harry and Harvey who took it. He only drank some soup and water and got a small profit. He was probably also very envious. The film studio city that Harry used to shoot movies was Randy's property. To be honest, he did not make much money from Harry. He did not ask for rent, and he even paid for it with good food and drinks. The only benefit he got was that Harry's 2 movies had become famous, and Randy's film studio city had also become popular. It had received the attention of the film industry. In this circle, everyone was very superstitious. 2 movies that could be sold in a film studio city had appeared in a row. Didn't matter if there were other factors involved. The most important thing was to let the film industry know that they were all produced in Randy's film studio complex. That was enough. This meant that this was a land of good fortune. The works that were filmed here could be very popular. This kind of superstitious culture can't be stopped once it's started. Therefore, after Harry's movie ended filming in the film studio complex. At that time, there was not much of a reaction, but when the box office sales of the 2 movies went up and down, the people in the industry went crazy. Nowadays, no one could go against money. With the treasure land that could produce 2 super popular movies, this would definitely attract people. For a moment, countless big-name directors and film investors turned their gazes to the place. Randy, this film studio that had not been very famous in the past, instantly stepped through the door and entered. The contract signing alone had already been filmed several years later. Compared to Harry and Harvey making money directly, although Randy did not get many benefits now, Barry was at the back. He got the promotion of his own industry reputation, which money could not buy. Harry had nothing better to do. Since his subordinates needed money for a new project, he could only find good friends to work with. He turned on his phone and asked in the group chat, "Director Manson has a new movie project to shoot. Do you want to join in?" There was only Harry, Harvey, and Randy in this group chat, so there was no need to worry about what they said. Randy first replied, "Mr. Parker, I've been waiting for you to say this a long time ago. If you don't say it, I won't be able to say it." He was not dissatisfied with Harry. He felt that Harry ate all the food for himself, but he was too embarrassed to say it. Anyone with discerning eyes could tell that the film production team that Harry had set up was really too powerful. If even 2 movies were sold at a high price, then in the foreseeable future, more and more popular movies would be sent out one after another. This was equivalent to holding a treasure basin in his hands and planting a money-making tree. As long as he held it in his hands, the money would definitely flow into his pocket. As long as he wasn't a fool, he definitely wouldn't let outsiders get involved. That was why Randy looked at it passionately, but he really didn't want to talk to Harry. Harry said in surprise, "Why didn't you say so earlier? If you had said so earlier, you would have also invested in the first 2 movies." Randy smiled bitterly and said, "With Mr. Parker's wealth, isn't the money used to make movies a joke? How could I have the face to invest in them?" Harry smiled and said, "Then it's okay now. I don't have money anymore. Let's make a new movie together." Harvey, who had been silent all this time, became anxious. "I went to the toilet, and you guys settled the matter. Take me with you." Randy said in surprise, "No, Mr. Parker, why do you have no money? What happened?" Harvey also responded, "Yeah, Mr. Parker, tell your brothers that you don't have any money. I will give you whatever you want," Harvey said. Harry sighed in his heart. He still had a good brother to help him. He did not have to be afraid of anything. Someone was helping him. He explained, It's not as scary as you think. I just developed too many industries and needed too much investment. I can't turn things around in a short period of time. Is that so? It doesn't matter. Mr. Parker, it doesn't matter. I still have more than $10 billion in funds. If you want to use it, you can take it away at any time, Randy said generously. Yes, I also have about $1 billion. Mr. Parker, if you need it, just tell me. In fact, these weren't the only funds they could use. However, they had invested almost all of their assets in reflecting Moon Island with Harry. After this period of time, the properties had slowly recovered and they now have more than $10 billion in their hands. Harry suddenly thought of the super factories he had built on the industrial island. Why should he monopolize it? It was actually not bad to let his two brothers invest in it as well. The super battery project, the electronics industry project, and the new electric car project could all be open to them, as long as they had the bionic robot project in their hands. It was not because he did not trust the two of them, but because Harry felt that there was no need to implicate the two of them with the trump card he had to keep. In the future, the opponents that the bionic robots had to deal with weren't ordinary people. The consequences would be too great, so he had to bear the responsibility. As for the other projects, they were all very optimistic about the market. In the future, the profits would also be high. He could just bring his two brothers and make a fortune together. Harry said, "If you really have such thoughts, then you can invest in the super factory on my industrial island. But now, let's talk about the new movie." Super factory? I'm very interested in this. I've been waiting to talk to Mr. Parker for a long time, Randy said excitedly. Harvey said, "Yeah, let's talk about the movie first, then talk about the big project." Harry smiled and said, "The budget for the beginning of the new movie is $2 billion. Let's discuss the investment proportion." Randy immediately replied, "Only $2 billion. What was there to talk about? There's no need to talk about it. Mr. Livingston and I have $1 billion each, and each of us owns 30% of the shares. The rest is Mr. Parker's. Does Mr. Livingston agree?" Harvey said, "I have no objections. The plan is fine." Harry shook his head helplessly when he saw how quick the two of them were. "How could that be? I already invested half of your investment, and I still take 40% of it? This doesn't make sense." Randy said, "What is there to be unreasonable about? Harry did not invest in technology. There's still a script or something. Without this most important thing, the investment will just be a drizzle of hair." Harvey said, "Mr. Parker, don't reject it anymore. It's settled then." Harry could only accept it. The two of them were not in the mood to talk about small projects like movie investments. They were prepared to put their focus on their super factory. Comparatively speaking, if one person invested $1 billion in a movie, whether it was making money or losing money, to them it was simply an unimportant matter. They could only say, "All right, then let's talk about the super factory." "Right, I've been interested in Mr. Parker's black technology for a long time. Didn't I advise you to start a related industry? Let's talk about this now," Randy said excitedly. Harry suddenly remembered when he heard that. When he first created X's super smart sports car, Randy was simply shocked. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he couldn't bear to part with it. He kept persuading Harry to take out this technology and put it into the market to earn money. However, Harry was not interested at that time. Plus, he did not lack money, so it was left unsettled. Now that he had the bionic robot, the most important thing was that Harry wanted to create his own invincible weapon, his trump card. He needed a production area that he had his own. This was how the Industrial Island project started. However, the money needed to create a bionic robot was even more. With Harry's current wealth, it was not enough to support it. He could only build a few more secondary industries. While earning money, he could also raise a production line of bionic robots. Only then he could continuously produce the super trump card of Terminator for Harry. "Mr. Parker, how much money do you need now? Tell me," Harvey asked. He just gave the Research Institute $50 billion in funding for the design of the artificial intelligence production line for bionic robots. Harry only had around $60 billion left, and he still needed to save about $10 billion to maintain his daily expenses, as well as to deal with emergency needs. Therefore, Harry could only use $50 billion left, and basic infrastructure investment in the early stages of Industrial Island had basically been completed. Now the main body of the factory had been built, leaving only the purchase of the water production line, the purchase of raw materials, and the operation funding for the later stages of the market. These investments, $50 billion, was definitely not enough. Just the production line of the new electric car alone required more than $10 billion. Although it could be contracted to other manufacturers to manufacture the less important parts, Harry did not plan to do so because this kind of upstream and downstream manufacturing method was very easy to get stuck into one's neck. Therefore, other than the raw materials needed to be purchased, Harry required all the products in the entire factory to be manufactured on their own. Calculating everything, the estimated capital was around 100 billion. In other words, other than 50 billion in Harry's hands, he was still short of 50 billion. This money, even if Randy and Harvey were to invest in it together, it's not enough. Harry said, I have 50 billion, but I'm still short of 50 billion. So, you two don't have enough money. Previously, he thought that he would invest 100 billion into the manufacturing of the low-end products in an industrial island. When the products entered the market and the funds started to flow back, he would slowly build the bionic robot production line. However, the change of plans was not as fast as the change of plans. Harry did not expect the Research Institute to develop the mature bionic robot technology so quickly. He was still impatiently preparing to start designing the production line. Harry did not want to dispel the researchers' enthusiasm, so he could only approve the 50 billion funds first. Harry knew that although knowledge was important for scientific research, inspiration was more important. However, inspiration was fleeting. Now that Stephen and the others were so confident in the intelligent production line, it was best to get on the horse as soon as possible. If they were late, they would probably put all their attention on their projects and delay things even more. Sure enough, when Harry mentioned the lack of funds, Randy and Harvey had a headache. Mr. Livingston, I think I can gather 15 billion here. What about you? Randy asked. Me too. It's all on my own money. I still need 20 billion. Why don't I ask my dad for it? Randy immediately shook his head. No way! The three of us always have been playing with money. We never let our families get involved. We can't be an exception now. Harry also had a headache. So what should we do? Why don't we cut down a few products first? This way the financial pressure will be less. Randy shook his head even more. No. The electronics industry is all ecological. We can't be biased towards the industry chain. It can be fully developed just like that. Harvey also agreed. What he said makes sense. We have the advanced technology now. We could take over the market as soon as we release all the technology. If not, we'll have to wait for our competitors to react and start replicating it. We will have to put in a lot of effort. Randy became even more anxious when he heard this. So what are we still talking about on the phone? I'll go over right now. Let's meet and chat. Harvey smiled and said, That's true. Is it convenient for Mr. Parker now? Harry said, What's there to be inconvenient about? Come over now. After the conversation ended, in less than half a day, the two private planes landed on the airport of Harry's Allen Island. Randy and Harvey did not stay in Florida often. Sometimes they would also go out for a long time. After all, they had been away for a long time, and their families were not here. However, with Harry's big project, they pushed aside the huge matter and flew over as fast as they could. Mr. Parker, it's been a long time since we last saw each other. Why are you so haggard? Randy said. Randy had just gotten off the plane when he saw Harry welcoming him from afar. He laughed exaggeratedly and ran over. Harry smiled and said, Am I that haggard? Yes, you must be too busy at night. Be careful for your health, Randy said vulgarly. Harry said with disdain, You think I'm the same as you? You weren't like me in the past, but now you know how to play better than me. Harvey also walked over. Stop joking. Mr. Parker must have been too busy during this period of time. Harry smiled guiltily. He really had not been busy all day. He greeted. Let's go and have a seat in the manor. Randy waved his hand. No, let's go to the industrial island first. We saw something on the plane just now. What a big change. Harvey also said, That's right. In the past, it was an unassuming, deserted island, but now it had almost become a town. Industrial Island was right next to Allen Island. When the two of them took the plane over, they just happened to pass by from the sky. Looking down, it was indeed very shocking. The entire industrial island had completely changed, and they didn't even know who it was anymore. Seeing that the two of them were so impatient, Harry had no choice but to fulfill his wish. He raised his hand and said, Then let's go. Let's take a boat over. We still have to take another boat? It's too inconvenient, Randy said. Harry rolled his eyes. Do you think I'm willing? I don't have the money to build the bridge. After saying that, the three of them boarded the speedboat and went straight to the dock of the industrial island. Although the construction of Industrial Island was almost finished, the construction workers still kept coming and going. All kinds of vehicles were circulating nonstop, and the ships transporting the goods on the pier were also coming and going in an endless stream. Seeing this busy scene, Randy and Harvey were amazed. "Mr. Parker, you really are generous. The project with Reflecting Moon Island is like heaven and earth," Randy praised. Harry said, "Of course, one is a tourism project and the other is an industrial project. There is no better construction capacity than this." As they walked towards the center of the island, the engineers they met on the way greeted Harry very respectfully. "Greetings, Mr. Parker. Greetings, Mr. Parker. Mr. Parker, you're here for an inspection?" Harry nodded along the way. "Yes, I'm here to take a look. Thank you for your hard work." Randy and Harvey also kept shaking their heads and looking left and right the whole way. They were so dazzled by what they saw. They were surprised. "Mr. Parker, I don't quite understand the facilities on this island. What is the thick and tall tower in front of us for?" Harry smiled and said, "Over there, it's the energy center of the entire island. It's a geothermal power station." "What the? It's so high-end." "Yeah, it's because there's a factory here. How can there be no electricity? The energy transmission project from Florida is greater, and the losses are also greater. We can only build our own power station," Harry explained. "The geothermal energy can be found here. I didn't expect to see it here," Harvey sighed. "That's right, Mr. Parker, your project is definitely a super project." The industrial island was far away from land. If he wanted to build a factory on a deserted island on the sea, he could only solve the problem of power supply himself. Although the investment for a normal power station was a little less, in the future, he would need to buy fuel for the power generation continuously. This expenditure was very large. Moreover, the pollution from power generators was also huge, which would create a certain image for the tourism projects in Reflecting Moon Island. Harry sighed and said, "Not possible to not make it big. Fortunately, there is geothermal energy on the island, so it can be fully utilized. There are a lot of investments in the early stages, but there is still a constant fuel cost left in the later stages." Randy praised, "It can be done. If we want to do it, we have to do extraordinary projects. With geothermal power stations, it will be convenient to do anything. The energy supply in these days must not be small." "Yes." Harry nodded and did not tell the two of them that the geothermal power station was actually just a transitional project. When Callie's nuclear fusion power application project was established, it would be a real super project. However, it was still too early to say all of this. For the time being, there was no need to think about it. Moreover, even if the technology was mature, Harry did not have the money to start work. He brought the two of them and walked around the island. They came to the administrative center and started to plan the entire island. Then the two of them were stunned. At first, they were amazed by the various projects on the island. Now, after looking at Harry's plan, they knew how grand the project that Harry was going to build. Harvey said in surprise, "Mr. Parker, I don't think you would want to contract the future. In the future, all electronic products in the future can be produced here." Randy was not surprised. "What's the big deal? From the time Mr. Parker built the artificial intelligence X and then combined it with a supercar to complete a car that can drive on its own, I knew that all electronic products in the world will be eliminated in the future." Harry nodded. "Yes, from now on, it will be the world of artificial intelligence. Whether it is mobile phones, computers, or all kinds of home appliances, they are all connected to the artificial intelligence network. Only a super artificial intelligence like X can be truly realized." Harvey flipped through the product planning book and still had not recovered from the shock. Super artificial intelligence, coupled with a new battery technology that far surpasses the current technology, is the absolute core. In the future, the products here will rely on these two items to seize the market. Harry nodded. "Yes, the other technologies are already available now. These two are our advantages." Harvey asked, "Mr. Parker, have you thought about it? Once the products are put into the market, there will inevitably be competitors researching in reverse and even stealing the technology. When that comes, our advantages will be gone." Harry agreed. "This is inevitable, but there is no need to worry. The intelligence core of X is under our control. The product sold is just an accepted terminal. As for the battery, it will use disassembling technology to ensure that no one will disassemble it for research." Randy was worried. What if someone disassembles them with some kind of technology? Harry smiled. "Just disassemble them. The structure of the battery was not unusual. The main thing was the materials in the formula. Without a strong competitor, it would take more than 10 years to develop and deduce it. The most important technology of super batteries is the creation of new material formulas. The new material is the hardest to imitate and research, so Harry was not too worried. Even if it was researched in reverse, the market would have long been taken over by Harry, not to mention the fact that the new material was the hardest to imitate and research. It wasn't that Harry didn't know how to improve his skills. He might even have better skills in the future. Without these worries, Randy and Harvey were even happier. Looks like Mr. Parker has gotten serious without saying anything. If there's nothing else to say, we have to catch up too. We're definitely going to invest this money, Randy said. Harry asked, but it's still not enough. I think it's better to reduce some of the products. Harvey shook his head. There's no need. We just need 20 billion more. I'll just go to the bank and get a loan. Randy also nodded. Yeah, you're right, Mr. Livingston. I'll get another 20 billion. This is not a problem. Harry could only nod and say, all right, as long as you think it's appropriate, do your best. It's fine. 20 billion isn't a lot. It's very easy to loan. Besides, we're all very optimistic about the future of this place. When the apple appears, it will shock the entire world. Now the market value is more than 10 billion. Mr. Parker is even more awesome. I don't even dare to estimate its value in the future, Harvey said. With regards to the future of Industrial Island, people with discerning eyes could tell that when the products started to be sold in the market in the future, other products of the same type would immediately die. Without the same technical ability, they would not be able to compete with Harry. What did this mean? Just the market share of mobile phones. The world was more than 1 trillion, including computers and some other home appliances. There was also the biggest, the new super battery electric car and the artificial intelligence system. This was a technological reformation that overturned the world. This market share was no longer trillions, but tens or even hundreds of trillions. It was unimaginable. Harry knew how much shock it would bring to the world in the future, so he spared no effort to build the bionic robot production line. He wanted to have the ability to protect himself when faced with threats in the future. This world was unreasonable. People with power could use all kinds of methods to attack their opponents. It would be strange if they did not use knives to snatch the big and delicious cake made by Harry. Alright, since there is no problem with the funds, let's talk about the distribution of shares. I take 60% and you two take 20% each, Harry said. Unexpectedly, just as he finished speaking, Randy and Harvey shook their heads. No. What is it? The two of us have taken up too much, Harvey said. Randy shook his head. It's too much. Mr. Parker, you should have taken up the other share of the technology, and you even completed the basic facilities. Mr. Livingston and I are only investing. The 50 billion that we have is not much. Technology was the most important thing when it came to investing. Funds were actually the best to find. Without technology, it was nothing. Money alone was not enough. So I think that no one will take 10% of the shares. Mr. Parker will take 80%, Harvey said. Harry was surprised and said, that is not fair to you. No, I think 10% is too much. He took advantage of Mr. Parker. In fact, Mr. Parker could not solve the shortage of funds. The only way he could give us the opportunity to invest is to give us gold mines, Randy said. Harvey nodded. Yes, this place will not be a super factory in the future. It will be a super money-making machine. After discussing the allocation of the investment funds, Harvey and Randy moved very quickly. In less than 2 days, they went to do the loan themselves. Then they transferred 50 billion to Harry and started to start the business chain of Industrial Island. The reason why the two were so proactive was that they were not only optimistic about Harry's development, but also they did not want to rely on inheriting their family's property to survive. They both wanted to rely on their own strength to develop a path. In the future, they might even be able to make a business that didn't belong to their family's current scale. Harry did not want to be polite with the two of them anymore. He signed the contract with the two of them according to the shares that they had discussed earlier. Everything was ready. The Industrial Island, which had new funds, began to enter the construction stage of a major explosion. What was even better was that Randy and Harvey also had connections. They could quickly get in touch with the relevant machinery, equipment, and raw materials that they needed. It was much more beneficial than Harry developing by himself. Just like that, everything was lively and peaceful, but a sudden phone call broke Harry's peaceful life. Harry, who was inspecting the project on the island, received an unknown number on his phone. It showed that it was a call from abroad. Harry did not know what was going on. All the people he knew were in the country. There were no outsiders, but this number was a little strange. He had just picked it up. Before Harry could speak or hear clearly who it was, the phone hung up. Harry didn't really care. He thought it was the wrong number or some kind of phone scam. After hanging up the phone, he turned around and forgot about this matter. But at night, when Harry was lying on the bed and preparing to sleep, the call came again. Harry picked up the phone in confusion. "Hello, who is it?" "Harry." The familiar voice on the phone caused Harry's brain to explode. He immediately sat up in shock. "Kiki?" "Yes, it's me." "Why did you call me? No, are you okay?" Harry asked without knowing what to say. Because he could hear Kiki's voice on the phone was very sad and sounded like she was sobbing. This meant that she must have had a bad time during her stay in California. Kiki heard Harry's voice and finally cried. "Harry, I miss you so much." "I miss you too," Harry sighed. If Kiki hadn't left on her own accord, Harry would never have let the people from California take her away. No matter who it was, regardless of whether it was the royal family or the Sanderson family, they were no different in Harry's eyes. Kiki cried, "Tomorrow, I will be forced to marry Sanderson by my family." Harry was shocked. "Tomorrow? Why is it so sudden?" He didn't expect Kiki to be taken by the royal family like a commodity, to be married to a Californian tycoon. This was ridiculous. He asked, "What do you think? If you're not willing, I'll go and pick you up right now." Kiki said, "Of course, I don't want to, but... As a princess, Kiki often had no choice but to do so. Although she didn't want to marry into the Sanderson family, this was already a fact. If she came out to find Harry again, she would really bring a huge disaster to Harry. She did not want to let Harry get hurt. Therefore, after returning to California, she had suppressed her longing and had never contacted Harry. However, the more she suppressed it, the stronger her longing became. Until today, she was going to be married to the Sanderson family. She was really unwilling to do so. She wanted to hear Harry's voice again, so she couldn't help but call him. "Stop talking. I understand your concerns," Harry said. He did not blame Kiki. This was not something a little girl like her could control. After thinking for a while, Harry said again, "Let me ask you, if I go to find you now, are you willing to come back with me?" Kiki cried, "I am willing, but Harry, this way, the Sanderson family will not let you go." Harry said indifferently, "You don't have to worry about that. It's just a mere Sanderson family. I don't care about it at all. Go. Where are you now? I'll go and pick you up now." Kiki cried out an address. Harry comforted her for a while before hanging up. Then he began to gather people. "June, ask the wolf guard to gather. Follow me to California and bring Kiki back." June, who was guarding Harry's door, heard his orders and immediately pushed the door open. "Sir, are you going to pick Kiki up?" June was very surprised. It was so late in the night. Why did this suddenly happen? Harry nodded. "She's not happy over there. Of course, I have to bring her back." After saying that, he started to put on his clothes. June quickly went forward to serve and asked, "Is Kiki going to have a marriage alliance with the Sanderson family?" Harry said with a solemn face, "Yes." "But sir, if you go and pick her up now, you'll become hostile to the Sanderson family." Harry said angrily, "So what if I become hostile? Do you think I'm afraid of the Sanderson family?" June saw that Harry was angry, immediately accused him. "Sir, that's not what I meant. I'm worried that the Sanderson family will create unnecessary trouble for Mr. Parker." Harry sneered. "I was hoping that they would cause trouble. Last time I took Kiki away, I had a stomach full of anger and had yet to flare up. This time I will settle the score with them." June frowned and said, "The problem is, according to the Sanderson family's arrogant attitude, even if young master brings Kiki back, they will still send people to look for trouble. Now that industrial island is about to fall, we must not cause any trouble." Harry started to think. What June said was right. According to Harry's current identity, it was not very obvious. He was just a rich man. As for the controller of Los Angeles and the Sanderson family, they wouldn't be afraid of Harry. They were afraid that Harvey and Randy wouldn't be able to do anything to him. For a tycoon who controlled a country, they wouldn't put any ordinary family in their eyes. Therefore, if Harry really wanted to forcefully bring her back, there would be a lot of trouble in the future. The best way for Harry to go up against them and reveal his identity as the heir of Parker family. This way, the Sanderson family would be able to lower their heads. Even the royal family of Los Angeles wouldn't dare to utter a single word in front of the Parker family. But the problem was that Harry didn't want to rely on the power of his family. He had long wanted to leave the control of his family. The more he relied on the power of his family, the more involved he would be. Harry furrowed his brows, feeling very vexed in his heart. It would have been better if he had built the industrial island as soon as possible. The earlier the bionic robots were formed, the more confidence Harry had in dominating the entire world. But it was too late to say anything now. He could only take one step at a time and bring Kiki back first. After getting dressed, Harry, who had just walked out of the manor, instructed June again. By the way, call Lara over as well. Yes, sir. There would probably be conflicts during this trip to California. Although there were elites like the Wolf Guard in the field, there was still a lot of conflicts. However, Harry couldn't underestimate the strength of the Sanderson family. As a super tycoon, it was impossible for his subordinates to not have the strength to defend themselves. Because they were in a hurry, they could only use Harry's private jet and bring no more than 200 people with them. Their strength was still a little lacking, so they could only bring Lara along, hoping that this super powerful Terminator that was forged with a huge amount of money would not disappoint them. It would also allow Lara to fully unleash her battle mode and see how strong she was. When Harry arrived at his airport, George had already brought a group of people and lined up in front of the plane to wait. Harry walked forward and asked, "You know what kind of operation it is this time?" George nodded and said, "I already know. June just called me and said it clearly." "Very good. Our goal is to bring Kiki back. If the people in California aren't respected, you know what to do." Harry said, "Understood. Let's board the plane." With Harry's command, Wolfguard quickly ran onto the plane. "Sir, just leave it to us. You don't need to follow us." June saw that Harry was also about to board the plane, so she hurriedly stopped him. Harry said, "No, I have to go with you. Otherwise, I won't be at ease." "But what if there is danger?" June was worried. Harry waved his hand firmly. "What danger can there be? Don't say any more. Let's go." He pushed June's hand away and walked onto the plane. Although the departure was very rushed, it still took more than 2 hours to arrive at the destination after taking off. Using this time, June started discussing with George and the Wolf Guard on the plane. "This is the address Kiki sent over. I have checked and found out that it is a seaside manor in the Sanderson family. There is also an airport runway in the manor for us to take off and land." George looked at the satellite map and said, "This is great. It saves us a lot of trouble. We can launch a lightning attack and receive them in one step." June nodded and said, "Yes, but we must not let our guard down. If the landing of our plane is too big, it will definitely alert the guards of the entire manor. Once they understand that our intentions is to bring Kiki away, there will definitely be some twists and turns." George smiled and said, "It's okay. I have an idea. There is a parachute on the plane. When we arrive at the destination, do not land first." June immediately understood. "You mean the plane will hover in the sky first? After you find the person in the airdrop manor, you will land and then take off immediately after receiving the person?" "Yes, this is the most unexpected. The guards of the Sanderson Manor definitely won't be able to react in time." "Very good. Let's do it like this." Harry sat at the side and didn't say anything. It was only at this moment that he opened his mouth and said, "No matter how unexpected it is, we will have to face the pursuit of the Sanderson family's guards when we catch them and board the plane. This is the most dangerous moment." It was important to pick up Kiki. The safety of the Wolf Guard's elites was also very important. Harry was not someone who would not care about the lives of his subordinates, so he needed to make the most foolproof arrangements. However, George said, "Sir, you don't have to worry about us. It's our duty to do things for young master. If there's any danger, we won't go. We don't deserve to be called the Wolf Guard." Harry said, "That's what you said, but we still have to ensure the safety of the place. When the first batch of people sneak in, I think it's better to be careful." He looked at Harry and was very worried. June thought for a moment and said, "Sir, how about we contact Kiki now? If we can get her to cooperate, it would be best to wait for us near the airport." Harry agreed and said, "Yes, this is the best. I will contact her now." After saying that, he took out his phone and called Kiki, who was in contact with him. However, he couldn't get through to her several times in a row. Harry knew that there was no need to think about it anymore. It must be the Sanderson family that controlled Kiki. Because of the lesson they had learned from their escape, they didn't want to lose her again. This time, they would definitely keep a tighter watch on her. "There's no choice. We can only use force," June said. "I'll make another call." Harry thought for a while and finally got up to his room to avoid the crowd. He called his family's old housekeeper, Nate. "Sir, it's so late and you still want to contact me? Is there something important? Nate quickly picked up the phone. Uncle Nate, it's nothing serious. I just have a small matter that I need to ask of you. Harry briefly explained the matter, which was a little difficult for him to say. Nate laughed on the phone. Oh, this matter is easy to talk about. Don't worry, young master. I will make arrangements for you. Harry was indifferent. Yes, sorry to trouble you, Uncle Nate, he said calmly. Look at what you said. How can this be trouble for me? It's my duty to do things for young master. After ending the call, Harry let out a sigh of relief. He was looking for Nate. Harry had no choice but to use the power of his family to let the Sanderson family know that he was facing the heir of the Parker family. His eyes lit up. At this moment, in Los Angeles, thousands of miles away, in a manor by the sea in the Sanderson family, Kiki, who had secretly called Harry, was soon discovered. The guards sent by the Sanderson family to watch over Kiki were very rude as they snatched her phone away and locked her in the room. According to the marriage agreement between the princess and the royal family and the Sanderson family, Kiki should be living in the palace of the royal family, waiting for the wedding ceremony the next day. However, the royal family was weak and did not have much right to speak. The Sanderson family was very powerful and did not want Kiki to run away again. If that was the case, the Sanderson family would not afford to lose face. They arranged for her to stay in the seaside manor, which was far away from the city. It was inconvenient to travel there. This way, even if Kiki secretly ran out, she would not be able to run very far without a means of transportation. Furthermore, the security of the manor was unusually tight. It was like a 10-step patrol. A large number of guards patrolled the manor and outside 24 hours a day. There were also various electronic surveillance and alarm devices all around the manor. It could be said that even if a fly wanted to fly in and out, it would be impossible, let alone a living person. Such a strict defense was to ensure that the wedding would be carried out as scheduled tomorrow, and no accidents would happen. Kiki, who was alone in the room, looked at the tightly locked windows and the incomparably strong bulletproof glass. She began to regret calling Harry. The Sanderson family was so strict, how could Harry take her away? Kiki was more worried about whether Harry would come personally. Wouldn't that be even more dangerous? On the plane, Harry was worried even after making the phone call. It shouldn't be a problem for him to rely on his family's power to force the Sanderson family to lower their heads. However, he was afraid that someone in the Sanderson family had a wild and unruly character. What if this person takes the opportunity to make a move on Kiki before Harry arrives? This was not impossible. Once he wanted to break the jar, Kiki might be in danger. Thinking of this, Harry turned around and returned to his room to call Nate. His goal was to not contact the Sanderson family before he arrived at Kiki's manor and exert pressure on them. When they returned, June and George were still perfecting their plan according to the map. Harry saw Lara meditating and said, I have an idea. It is best to attack the east and west. Sir, what do you mean? Everyone looked at Harry. He continued, as we are in the air above the manor, ask Lara to jump onto the terrace and land there, and then take the opportunity to alert the guards of the manor in other directions. If we can't lure everyone away, we can lure most of the people away, and then the others can take advantage of the chaos to enter the manor and find Kiki. June said, but it is not safe to let Lara act alone. What would we do if there was an accident? Harry looked at Lara and asked, what do you think? At this time, Harry no longer treated her as a robot. Because Lara's intelligence core was X, Harry trusted X very much and could communicate with her like a normal person. Lara nodded and said, your plan has the highest success rate. I can totally do it. Very good. Then let's do it this way. George said in surprise, Sir, are you not afraid that Lara will be in danger? He still didn't know Lara's true identity, so when he heard Harry's plan, he was obviously very surprised. However, Harry said, Lara's different. She will definitely be fine. At most, she will self-destruct. Self-destruct? George and the others' jaws dropped to the ground. They did not understand what Mr. Parker meant. How could such a beautiful girl explode herself? Harry explained to everyone with a smile. Only then did they realize what was going on, but they looked at Lara closely with great curiosity. No one would have thought that it was actually a bionic robot like the 3 bionic dogs in the manor. Harry had absolute confidence that as long as Lara understood the plan, she would definitely do it perfectly. Furthermore, with Lara's strength, she could be said to be invulnerable. As long as they did not use any heavy weapons, they would not be able to harm her. Furthermore, no matter how strong the Sanderson family was, it was impossible for them to arrange for such heavy weapons in their manner to compete with Lara. Even if something unexpected happened, at most, Lara could forcefully activate the self-destruction command and blow herself up. That wouldn't expose her secret. Even though it would be a pity if she were to self-destruct, after all, Harry had spent $5 billion to build this robot. However, it was nothing. Lara would not sacrifice itself. It would just return to change her body and install the backup AI core in the cloud storage. Harry would just need to spend another $5 billion. When the production line was completed, the price would be even lower. After arranging the operation plan, he looked at the time and saw that there was still more than an hour left. Buffguard began to make the best use of the time to rest and adjust their bodies to their best condition. In the manner of the Sanderson family, Kiki, who was locked up in her room, was anxiously waiting for Harry's arrival. The more she thought about it, the more she regretted calling Harry. She wanted to contact Harry again and ask him to not come again. However, her phone had been taken away, so how could she contact him? All means of communication with the outside world had been taken away by the people of the Sanderson family. Although it was an incomparably luxurious room in Kiki's eyes, it was no different from a prison cell. Though it was getting late, Kiki did not feel sleepy at all. At this time, outside the manor, a super sports car arrived. It drove all the way to the entrance of the manor hall. To be able to drive so arrogantly to the side of the door, of course it was the owner of this place, the Sanderson family. The maids and guards in the manor hurriedly went forward to welcome them in a line. "Sir." "Yes, where is she?" Sanderson asked coldly. Needless to say, everyone knew who he was asking for. One of the guards said, "She's locked up in her room." "All right, all of you can disperse. You all know what you need to do." "Yes." The servants and guards dispersed. Although it was already late at night, these people were still very busy. Because the wedding was tomorrow, furthermore the location was right at the manor, so these servants were busy making the final arrangements. This Sanderson fellow drank some wine and brought his drunk self to Kiki's room. At the door, there were 2 guards standing guard. When they saw their sir, they quickly bowed. Sanderson ordered, "Open the door." "Yes, sir." The guard didn't dare to ask any more questions and quickly took out the key to open the door. In Los Angeles, especially in the upper echelons of California, marriage was carried out in accordance with tradition. According to the rules, newlyweds were not allowed to meet on the night before the wedding. But now that the young master of the Sanderson family had requested it, they could only do as they were told, and no one dared to say anything. Although the members of the royal family who followed Kiki here were also here, they had long been pushed to a remote corner of the manor and had no idea about it. The door of the room was pushed open, and Kiki, who was restless inside, was shocked to see this sloshed dude entering her room. When she saw that the person who came was the Sanderson prince, she was even more shocked, so she stood up. She panicked and said, Why are you here? You can't see me now." Sanderson's body reeked of alcohol as he coldly smiled and firmly closed the door. "Ha! Why can't I see you? Do you think you're still that noble princess? You dare!" Kiki saw Sanderson's malicious look, and her heart became even more flustered. She could only hope to use her identity as a princess to make him hesitate. But from the looks of it, he did not put her in his eyes at all. "Ha! Kiki, you are the one who was engaged to me. You actually dare to go out and mingle with other men? Doing such a shameless thing. What gives you the audacity to call yourself a princess?" Sanderson gritted his teeth and said, "I don't want to marry you at all." Kiki said, Yes. If it wasn't because of the engagement, you wouldn't have come back, right? But it doesn't matter. I just want to have a good time with you." Sanderson sneered. Seeing him getting closer and closer, Kiki's heart panicked. She crossed her arms in front of her chest slowly. She retreated and said, What exactly do you want?" "Ha! What do you think?" Sanderson's eyes were filled with an uncontrollable madness. When Kiki saw his appearance and the strong smell of alcohol, she knew that he was up to no good. She did her best to retreat to the corner and grabbed a chair in front of the dressing table to block him. "I'm not a member of your family yet. You better not touch me." Sanderson didn't care about this and laughed wildly. "It wasn't until before, but it is bound to happen tomorrow. This is your life now. Accept it." As he spoke, he pounced over. Kiki used all of her strength to push the chair in front of Sanderson and used all of her strength to block him. She cried out in shock, "Someone help! Someone help, please!" Just shout as much as you want. No matter how much noise you make in this room, they won't be able to hear it outside. I'm going to love you like crazy tonight." Kiki was shocked. You are crazy." "Yes, I am crazy. I've been crazy ever since you ran out and gave me a green hat. Your innocent body belongs to me, and I will cherish it. But now it is gone, and it has been tarnished, and there's nothing for me to cherish. Tonight I will play you to your heart's content." "I've never liked you, much less belonged to you. Now get out of here." Kiki saw that Sanderson really came leaning towards her, and her heart became fierce. She pulled back the chair with all her strength and smashed it on Sanderson's head. Sanderson covered his head and staggered a few steps back. He opened his hand and saw the blood dripping on his palm. Kiki smashed him hard. The drunkenness after drinking and the dizziness after being smashed made him instantly crazier. "You dare to hit me? I'll let you know the consequences of doing this. Not only will I do my bit tonight, but I'll also cripple you." As he spoke, he pounced forward once again, baring his fangs and brandishing his claws. Kiki saw that his head was bleeding from being hit by her and felt a lingering fear in her heart. Her hands trembled and she could not hold the chair anymore. She let go of the chair and it fell on the ground. Now that Sanderson had pounced on her again, she could only start to dodge and panic. But the room was concised and the door was tightly locked. She could not hide for too long no matter where she went. Outside the room, the two guards guarding the door vaguely heard the chaotic sounds inside. After exchanging a glance, they acted as if they didn't hear anything and took 2 steps away to continue guarding. Outside the manor, the faint sound of an airplane engine could be heard in the air. A few guards outside looked up at the sky and saw a plane flying in the sky with flickering lights. They did not mind and lowered their heads to continue guarding. However, as the plane flew over, no one saw a series of black shadows jumping out of the plane in the night. Then, parachutes bloomed in the air. Harry brought the wolf guard over. June, George, and the rest all slid towards the terrace with parachutes on their backs and jumped out of the cargo cabin door that was opened by the plane. This was because they needed to ensure that the landing location was accurate and that they could not use ordinary round parachutes. That way, any random gust of wind could cause them to deviate from the landing direction. They can only use the parachutes used for gliding to adjust their direction and land in the direction of the Sanderson family's manor. June would definitely not let Harry participate in such a dangerous operation. She only let him wait in the plane. When June and the others found Kiki, the plane would land on the airport runway to the manor. Laura was the last one to land. Her body was special. Although her body size was similar to June's, because her body was made of metal, the weight was naturally different. Using the parachute to land was very fast, and the impact of landing was also great. But this was not important. The super high density of the metal bones would ensure that she would not be injured by the impact of landing. After June and the rest landed, they hid near the manor. Laura also landed on the other side of the manor and started her plan to lure the enemy. Laura had a glider on her back. When she was about 10 meters above the ground, she waved her hand behind and cut off all the ropes on the glider. Her entire body shot towards the ground like a cannonball. With a loud boom, the entire ground was smashed into a deep pit. When the manor guards heard the strange noise, they all ran over to check it out. However, Laura used an abnormally fast speed to dash forward. The few guards who came to check on her did not even have the time to react before their vision went black and they lost consciousness. In an instant, all of them were knocked unconscious by Laura. After that, Laura took the initiative to expose her whereabouts in front of the second wave of guards. "Who is it?" "The person in front. What is she up to?" "Call for backup, quickly. Someone of unknown origin has appeared in the manor. Surround her." Seeing Laura's incredible figure, all the guards of the Sanderson family were stunned. Then, they saw the guards who were knocked out by Laura, and their faces turned pale with fright. Immediately, they began to call out to Laura through the walkie-talkie. They couldn't help but panic. Tomorrow, the manor was going to hold a marriage alliance between the royal family and the Sanderson family. More importantly, Princess Kiki and Sanderson were also in the manor. They must not let anything happen to them, otherwise no one would be able to bear the responsibility. This could be fatal. Facing the increasing number of guards, Laura used the buildings and trees in the manor to hide inside, playing hide-and-seek with them. With Laura's strength, it was actually very easy for her to shake off these people, but her mission was to tie them down. The more people attracted, the smoother June's operation on the other side would be. Thus, she led more and more guards to Sanderson, and gradually, they started to leave the manor's main building without them noticing. Facing such a troublesome situation, the guards of the manor were also flustered. They had to capture Laura, so more and more people called for emergency support. The entire manor was alarmed, and more guards ran over. June, who was hiding on the other side, saw that the time was almost up. So she waved her hand and led the group of Wolfguard into action. At this time, the two guards guarding Kiki's door also found out about the situation outside the manor through the walkie-talkie, and it was getting more and more chaotic. The two of them looked at each other and finally decided to knock on the door to inform the Sanderson family who was inside. At this time in the room, Sanderson had just caught Kiki and was pressing her to the ground and starting to get closer to her. Being disturbed by the knocking at the door at the critical moment made Sanderson, who was full of anger, raged even more. "What the hell is this chaos about?" "Sir, an unknown person has barged into the manor." "So what? There are so many people guarding outside. What are you afraid of? Guard the door for me. No one is allowed to enter." Yes." The two guards standing guard did not dare to say anything else. In order to be safe, Sanderson had to take this seriously. However, he was in no place to think about anything else and was solely focused on Kiki. He loudly dismissed the two guards who knocked on the door and turned to stare at Kiki. Laura successfully lured most of the guards away from the manor while June brought the group of people from the Wolfguard in it. In order to alarm the electronic alarm system, they used a special firing rope to shoot from outside to the top of the main building. Then a group of people climbed up the roof, one after another. According to the location of the room that Kiki had previously provided, June quickly locked onto the target. With a wave of her hand, she brought a few of the wolf guards down on ropes, and with a swoosh, they quickly slid down. In Kiki's room, after Sanderson sent away the guards outside the door, they were alone, and Sanderson had an evil look in his eyes. He grabbed Kiki by the arm. "Ah, let go of me, don't!" Kiki cried as she desperately pushed him away. "Ha! What do you mean? You look so beautiful tonight. Let's not let this beauty go in vain." Sanderson was drunk and was no longer thinking rationally. After laughing maniacally, he tried kissing Kiki but was pushed away every time. At this time, June and the rest had already reached the window of Kiki's room. As June looked into the room, she seethed with anger after witnessing Sanderson assaulting Kiki. June did not care if the guards in the manor were alarmed. The windows were bulletproof glass, and normal methods would not be sufficient to open or break them. She could only use an aluminum heat agent to perform a high-temperature combustion explosion. Time was of the essence. June and a few of the wolf guards quickly stuck the special aluminum heat agent iron bar onto the glass. Then they lit the fire. Along with a series of explosions, the glass shattered. June did not wait for the fire to finish burning before she kicked the window open. "Who is it? Who are you?" Sanderson turned around and was shocked. There were a few people in black outside the window. Then, before he could react, he was kicked into the wall. After June entered the room, she kicked Sanderson without saying a word. Then she grabbed Kiki to safety. They had arrived just in time and had stopped him before he could do anything bad to Kiki. "It's fine. We're here to save you." June hugged Kiki and comforted her. Kiki finally felt hopeful and immediately broke down into tears. As for Sanderson, who was kicked to the wall, he held his stomach and stood up with difficulty. Through the broken window, he could also hear the alarm and chaotic sounds outside. Shocked, he said, "Idiot! How dare you barge into my manor? Guards, arrest these people!" When the two guards standing guard outside the door heard the commotion in the room, they immediately opened the door and ran in. When they saw a few strangers in black in the broken window, they were stunned. They didn't know what to do. Sanderson was furious. "Idiots! Did you guys get beaten up? Attack them!" They took out their weapons and pointed them at June and the wolf guards. Unfortunately for them, the wolf guards were elite fighters. They quickly overpowered Sanderson's guards without any issues. It made Sanderson so angry that he screamed at the top of his voice. "Useless trash! Oh, what's the use of paying you?" "You're the only one here that is useless." June motioned to the guards, who walked up to Sanderson and kicked him down again. "Ugh!" Sanderson bent over in pain. He was the one that Mr. Parker wanted to deal with, and that was why they didn't hold back when they attacked. Sanderson was definitely not a match for the elite warriors of Wolfguard. In the face of torture, he didn't even have the ability to fight back, so all he could do was endure the oncoming blows of attacks. June really could not bear to watch any more and turned her head to say, Stop wasting time. We have found her. Let's hurry up and leave. Yes, Miss June. A few guards responded and helped June tie Kiki up on the rope. They prepared to go down through the window. When they were about to leave, June turned her head and saw Sanderson winking at the 2 guards lying on the ground. She ordered the wolf guard, "Pack up these 3 first." Sanderson and his 2 guards were all knocked out. "Inform Sir that the plane has landed and the people on the roof will cover us. Let's hurry up," June said as she brought Kiki along and landed on the ground. Kiki finally recovered from her panic and looked at June and asked, "Harry is also here?" June smiled at her and said, "Yes, he's currently on the plane and is about to land. Let's just get out of this place quickly." Okay." Kiki heaved a sigh of relief knowing that Harry was nearby. Even though the Wolf Guard was a powerful faction, the Sanderson family was the ultimate head of Los Angeles. Hence, the security of the manor was very tight. A large part of the manor's security had been lured away by Lara, but it was still impossible for June to escape without any hindrance. Getting to Kiki was the easy part. Getting out would prove to be much more difficult. The manor was booby-trapped with alarms at every step of the way, and even with them being very careful, one by one the alarms were triggered off, inviting hordes of guards towards them. "George, bring your men and stop the people who are following us. I will take Kiki away first," June instructed. George knew that was the only way out, so he nodded and said, "Okay, don't worry, just leave it to me." Harry was anxiously waiting at the rooftop. After learning that June and the others had found Kiki, he immediately ordered the plane to land at the airport near the Sanderson family manor. The airport runway was different from the one on Harry's island. It was only used for small private planes to land, so it was narrow and short, which might have been an issue, but fortunately, it was Wayne who piloted the plane. In addition to that, the plane had a special landing function to deal with emergencies, so it could easily be used on a small runway. When Harry's plane landed, although there were guards at the airport, they didn't know what was going on, so they let Harry's plane land successfully. When another group of people from the Wolf Guard rushed out of the plane, the guards realized that something wasn't right. They wanted to rush forward with their weapons to control the situation, but they were all taken care of by Harry and the Wolf Guard in just a few moves. Divide the manpower into 2 groups. One group will go and bring June and Kiki back, and the other group will go and meet George and the rest. Harry walked out of the plane and made arrangements. "Yes, sir. Don't worry. We'll act now, but it is still too dangerous here. Sir, please go back to the plane." Harry shook his head and said, "I'm not in the mood to wait in the plane right now. Don't worry about me." The Wolf Guard at the airport could not stop Harry. They could only send out a few people to protect Harry. The rest of them quickly went to fulfill his orders. Harry stood on the runway of the airport, listening to the chaotic movements in the manor from the distance. He was very anxious. Fortunately, Lara's rescue team was successful. The manor was in chaos now, so they did not pay much attention to the airport. Apart from the guards who were initially arranged to be dealt with by the Wolf Guard, no one else could be seen. After waiting for a few minutes, Harry saw June holding Kiki in the distance and staggering over under the protection of a group of Wolf Guards. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" Harry quickly went up to her and asked. Whether June or Kiki who was injured, this was something Harry could not accept. June shook her head. "Sir, I'm fine. I brought Kiki out in a hurry and did not let her put on her shoes. She must have stepped on something sharp and cut her foot." Harry looked down and saw that there was indeed a trace of blood on Kiki's foot. "Take Kiki back to the plane to use the medicine kit first." Kiki looked at Harry in a daze and said, "Harry, you really came to pick me up." "Kiki, now is not the time to talk. Go to the plane and wait for me," Harry said gently. "Okay, I'll wait for you, but please, you must be careful." "Sir, I think I will leave," June said. "Yes." Harry waved his hand and motioned for them to hurry over. Kiki was saved and the operation was considered half successful. If they wanted to retreat unharmed, they had to wait for George and Lara's safe return. In the distance, they could hear the Sanderson guards closing in on them. Wayne didn't turn off the engine of the plane in order to get everyone out of danger as soon as possible. After landing, he turned the plane around and kept it in a state where it could take off at any time. After waiting for a while, George's voice came from Harry's walkie-talkie. "Sir, did June and Miss Kiki return?" "Yes, they got her to the plane. Come back quickly." However, George said, "No, there are too many people chasing behind us. We cannot go back now. I have an idea. Sir, please take Miss Kiki on the plane and leave. Don't worry about us." "No, how can I not care about you?" Harry scolded. "Sir, listen to me. I'm sure we can get rid of these people with the guards we have. You can leave without worrying about us. George was worried that if the Sanderson family decided to shoot down the plane, there would be no one to stop them from doing so. Therefore, he decided to let Harry go first. As for the wolf guard that he was following, he would think of other ways to return after getting rid of these guards. George wanted Harry to understand that the danger wasn't over. Even if Harry used his family's help to get Sanderson to back down, he couldn't be sure that they wouldn't simply kill George and the others in retaliation. After all, in the eyes of the powerful families, servants were tools that could be abandoned at any time. However, Harry knew that once he took off, the chance of survival of the others would just be too slim. Stop messing around. Now I order you to retreat to the airport. I will wait here. If you don't come back, I won't order the plane to take off, Harry said seriously. When George and the guards heard Harry's message, they couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by his words. He valued their lives more than his own safety. George yelled at his troops. You heard Mr. Harry. He's waiting for us, putting his own safety at stake. Let's take these guards down. On the other side, not only was Harry concerned about George and the others, but he was also paying attention to Laura's situation. Although Laura was a robot, this was Harry's treasured trump card for the future. He could not afford to lose it. It would be best if she could escape unscathed. Laura, you can retreat now. Go and meet George and the others first. Yes, sir. After receiving Harry's order, Laura turned around and ran towards George and the others. The only way to get rid of these pursuers and return to the airport safely was to take the initiative to attack and eliminate all threats. However, there were too many guards in the manor. George only brought 7 or 8 people with him. Facing over 100 guards, even if they were the most elite of the wolf guards, it would still be very difficult for them. At this critical moment, Laura was like a weapon that descended from the sky. After converting the charging speed into momentum, she directly jumped up to a height of more than 10 meters in the air. Then she smashed heavily into the crowd of manor guards. For a moment, everyone was thrown off their feet. A few of them were directly hit, but they were actually sent flying backwards and knocked down 7 or 8 people in a row before they stopped rolling. What? Said one of the guards. Oh my God, said another. The guards of the manor were shocked by this scene. George and the others were also shocked. The imposing manner that Laura displayed at this moment was like a human-shaped tank. No one could stop her from charging forward. George finally understood why Harry stopped them when he wanted to compare notes with Harry's bionic mechanical dog. This was not the strength of a human at all. It was an unparalleled impact, and it was swift and unpredictable. It was simply a perfect killing machine. Sir has ordered that I will be in charge of covering the retreat. You guys retreat first. Laura ordered. Normally, according to the pride of the Wolf Guard, it would be beneath them to ask someone else to cover their retreat. But the problem was that Laura was not a human. What was the point of arguing with a robot? Thus, George pulled the guards along and let Laura be in charge. After they left, Laura did not have any worries. The unparalleled mode was upgraded once again, as if it had been superimposed on the Berserk mode. She transformed into a human-shaped tank and started killing the security guards that were chasing George and his men. For those who dared to make a move against Harry, Laura's only order was to eliminate them. Run! Run! She's not human! She's a demon! A demon! Screamed a security guard. Help! Someone save me! Yelled another one. Even though Laura was alone, the hundreds of the Sanderson family guards were still beaten to a pulp by her. Harry looked at George and the others, who ran back in a sorry state, and asked with concern, Are they all back? Did any of them fall behind? George turned around and looked behind him. Everyone is here. No one is missing. That's good. Hurry up and board the plane. By the way, how is Laura? Harry asked again. George smiled. Sir, luckily we brought Laura here tonight. That's why we're able to leave safely. I can't even describe the scene just now. Harry nodded. I can imagine that. I've already ordered Laura to start her combat mode. George sighed and said, This is unbelievable. If it wasn't for the fact that she had to worry about saving people, it would be more than enough for her to topple the entire Sanderson Manor. When Harry heard the faint wails coming from afar, he became even more expectant of his future mechanical army. If Laura alone could have such a terrifying combat strength, what if it was 100, or even 1,000, or even tens of thousands? Perhaps at that time, Harry really would have the ability to overturn the world. It was not purely based on the martial strength to overturn the world, Instead, it was because a bionic robot like Lara, whose appearance was just too simple to disguise, was like a Terminator. With the addition of her invulnerable body and super artificial intelligence, she would have a perfect solution to any situation when facing any opponent. After a while, the wails in the distance gradually stopped. Lara's tall and well-proportioned body passed through the forest and appeared at the side of the runway. She walked towards Harry calmly. "Master, I've already taken care of the guards chasing after us. Currently, we have yet to find any new enemies, so we are temporarily safe." Harry smiled. "You've done well. Get on the plane. We should leave now." As the cabin door slowly closed, the engine of the plane began to roar. 2 rows of rocket boosters popped out from the rear of the plane. After a burst of hot flames, the entire plane was pushed into the sky. This was the emergency takeoff function of Harry's plane. When the distance between the runway and the plane was insufficient, it could use the rocket booster. It was only a one-time use. If you wanted to use it next time, you had to fill the fuel tank with booster fuel first. In the air, Harry looked at the exhausted wolf guard and felt slightly relieved. Although this operation was a little complicated, it was a good thing that it was a success. Kiki was rescued, and everyone was not left behind, except for Lara. At the Sanderson Manor, Sanderson slowly woke up after receiving emergency treatment from a few guards.
"Where is she? Where is Princess Kiki? Where are the people who broke into the manor?"
Sanderson asked angrily. The subordinate pointed to the window and said,
"Princess Kiki was taken away by those people. The guards of the manor are chasing after her."
Sanderson nodded.
"Very good. Capture all of them and bring them back to me. I would like to see who has the guts to barge into the Sanderson Manor and steal what is rightfully mine. I won't let any of them off lightly."
"Yes, sir. Our skills are some of the best in the world. They won't be able to run far." This unnecessary bragging made Sanderson wince. The moment the guard said this, it made Sanderson think of the 2 guards who had their weapons stolen and knelt down to beg for mercy after losing their weapons. Seeing that the 2 of them still lying on the ground like dead dogs, he pointed at them and ordered his other subordinates,
"Throw these 2 cowards into the sea and feed them to the fish." "Sir, please spare my life," said one of them. "Sir, please let us make up for our mistakes. We will go to help bring Princess Kiki back for you,"
said the other one. The other subordinates also tried to persuade Mr. Sanderson.
"Sir, now is the time to use our people. Why don't we send these 2 as fodder for us to get Princess Kiki?"
Sanderson said coldly,
"Okay, then you guys go. If you can't find Princess Kiki, then I'll have your heads."
The 2 guards immediately responded. Just as they got up and prepared to go out, they suddenly heard miserable wails coming from outside the window.
"Monster!"
said a guard, covering his eyes.
"Spare me! Spare me!"
said a guard who was curled up in a ball.
"Save me! Don't let me be behind!"
said a guard who was crawling away from the airstrip. Under the gloomy night sky outside the manor, these abnormally mournful wails sounded as if they were coming straight out of a horror film, making people's hair stand on end when they heard them. Looking down from the window, one could vaguely see that some of the guards were like toys that had been thrown by a giant machine, continuously flying into the air before falling to the ground. The sound of bones crunching could be heard from afar. Sanderson's 2 guards looked at each other and immediately said,
"Sir, the situation outside is unclear. We feel that it is more important to have a few people to protect you first." "Yes, to protect your safety, I will not hesitate to sacrifice myself,"
said one of the younger guards. Sanderson's head started to ache when he heard this.
"Idiots! You 2 are dead! Dead! Bring Kiki back now! Immediately! Immediately!"
The 2 guards were on the verge of tears as they resolutely walked out. However, just as they walked out of the manor's main hall, they saw countless guards crying for their parents as they scrambled back to the manor. This scene was like watching a scene from a horror movie. The 2 guards looked at each other again and ran towards the back door of the manor. They were preparing to leave the Sanderson family manor and never come back. It was too dangerous here. It was safer to return to the remote countryside and live in seclusion. Sanderson followed them outside. When he saw that the guards of his manor were utterly defeated, he became even more furious. He cursed angrily.
"Trash! All of you are trash! Do you still have the spirit of a warrior? As the guards of the Sanderson family, you have brought shame to our name."
The guard cried.
"Sir, it's not that I didn't try my best, but there are demons on the other side." Nonsense,
roared Sanderson. At this moment, in the sky above the airport in the distance, a huge plane soared from the east. Anderson knew that the plane belonged to Harry, and finally dawned on him that today's events were caused by him. Only Harry would travel such a long distance to take Kiki away. It was also because he had previously investigated Harry and knew that he owned such a plane.
It's him again. It's this Harry Parker again. It's not enough for him to humiliate me. He actually took Kiki away again on the eve of my wedding night. He's too arrogant, too condescending,
Sanderson shouted.
Sir, they took the plane and left. What should we do now?
Sanderson fiercely roared.
Collect yourselves, get into the fighter jets, and bring that plane down. I don't care how much force you use. I don't want Harry to leave our airspace alive.
At this moment, the housekeeper who was hiding in the manor suddenly jumped out.
Sir!
What is it? Said Sanderson.
Your father has called. I need you to answer it.
The housekeeper said nervously.
Bring it over.
Sanderson barked. The housekeeper was talking about the head of the Sanderson family and the current largest tycoon in California.
Father, why are you calling me? Kiki was taken away by someone. I don't have time to deal with other matters right now.
Anderson said impatiently. I know everything. What I want to tell you is about Kiki, his father said slowly.
Is that so? That's perfect. Hurry up and tell the self-defense force to stop that plane. Even if they blow it out of your sky, it'll still be fine. I definitely can't let her be stolen away again,
Sanderson said in a frenzy. Ugh, if you want to live a good life, then you have to have a bit of humility. Fortunately, you are still my biological son. Otherwise, I would have strangled you to death, his father said with disdain. Sanderson said in surprise.
Father, are you losing your mind right now? What are you talking about?
What I mean is that Princess Kiki will no longer be your fiancée. She's now with the Parker family's successor. You are not qualified to have her.
Who? Which Parker family?
Sanderson asked curiously.
Who else? In the world, even our family wouldn't dare to offend anyone. There is only one Parker family. Harry is the heir of the Parker family,
his father yelled.
What?
Sanderson exclaimed.
Don't take things too seriously. If you leave him alone, Mr. Parker might let you live with some humility,
his father calmly said.
Father, is what you said true?
Sanderson still didn't quite believe it.
It's absolutely true. The Parker family just informed me that they want us to give up Princess Kiki's engagement,
his father affirmed.
No, we can't compromise so easily,
Sanderson pleaded.
Idiot! Do you want to anger the Parker family? That's a family we can't afford to offend,
his father scolded.
Sanderson was speechless. There's nothing more to say. We'll do as the Parker family asks. Cancel the wedding tomorrow. Then you will hold a press conference and announce that you have given up on the engagement with Princess Kiki, his father commanded. No, how could I do such a humiliating thing?
Sanderson wanted to avoid such an embarrassment.
It has to be this way. Also, when the press conference is held tomorrow, in order to show your sincerity to the Parker family, you must wear a green hat in front of all the reporters, and you must not take it off until it ends. That's it.
His father sounded irate. After saying that, he hung up the phone. Sanderson threw the phone across the room, shattering against the wall and falling into many people on the floor. Not only did Harry humiliate him, but now his father asked him to humiliate himself even further. Late into the night, aboard Harry's plane, the Wolf Guard members who had used up all their strength fell asleep due to exhaustion. However, Harry did not feel tired. He was in the bedroom with June, cleaning Kiki's wounds before applying bandages. Fortunately, the wounds were not very deep and would heal easily if she were to just rest for a few days. When Kiki saw Harry squatting in front of her and applying medicine on her feet, her heart skipped a beat.
Harry, you don't have to do this. I can do it myself,
Kiki said shyly. June also said, Sir, let me do it. You should rest for a while. Harry said helplessly, I have been waiting around this whole time. Do I really need to rest? June did not say anything else. She knew that her employer's character was straightforward, and she would do whatever he said. Kiki was shy and introverted. She would not say anything if Harry insisted on treating her wounds. After a moment of silence, Kiki said worriedly,
Harry, I did not expect you to really come and save me. If the Sanderson family find out that you were the one who rescued me, they would definitely take their own sweet revenge.
Harry smiled indifferently. It's fine. You don't have to worry about that. Didn't I tell you before? The Sanderson family means nothing to me. Kiki didn't believe it and thought that Harry was just comforting her. He said, "How is that possible? The Sanderson family is the biggest and most powerful family in California." Harry said, "So what? If they don't provoke me, I will not raise a finger against them. I'm only doing them a favor by only rescuing you. I could, with the snap of my fingers, reduce the entire Sanderson family to nothing." Kiki said in a low voice, "You don't have to comfort me like this. You can send me back to Sanderson if it causes you too much trouble." Harry pretended to be angry and said, "I went all this way to save you just to give you back? Do I look like a fool?" No, that's not what I meant." Kiki quickly clarified. June, who was standing aside silently, stood up and said, "Miss Kiki, you still do not know the true identity of Mr. Parker." Kiki was stunned and asked, "Harry's true identity?" June looked at Harry and saw that he nodded and said, "Harry is the direct heir to the Parker family. In this world, if he were to want something, then all he would have to do is ask." Kiki exclaimed, "The Parker family? The direct heir?" Although no one treated her as a princess in front of Harry, Kiki was still the real princess of California. It wasn't that Kiki didn't know about other upper-class families, but she had never associated Harry with the strongest family in the world. When it all dawned on her, she realized that it was only because of who he was that he was able to pull her rescue off. Suddenly, Harry's phone rang. "Hello, Uncle Nate. Is the matter settled?" Harry picked up the phone and asked. "Sir, everything has been settled. The leader of the Sanderson family is very sensible. He asked me to pass a message on to you. In the future, the Sanderson family will definitely not seek out Princess Kiki. He also promised that his son will hold a press conference tomorrow to announce that the Sanderson family has given up on the engagement with Princess Kiki." Nate replied. Harry smiled and said, "Very good. It seems like the Sanderson family is still very sensible." Nate said, "That's right. Even if we give him 100 chances to attack us, he wouldn't dare to go against our family." "Thank you, Uncle Nate. I'll talk to you tomorrow. You should rest." "No worries. You should rest as well." After hanging up the phone, Harry looked at Kiki and smiled. "You heard what I said just now? You don't have to worry about the Sanderson family anymore. Everything else has been resolved." Kiki was so relieved that she started crying. Because of this engagement, she had always felt that she was bound by a chain. Until this moment, she felt that she had obtained a new life and her entire body felt as light as a feather. There was no longer any binding feeling, all thanks to Harry. "Thank you, Harry." Kiki cried out and threw herself into Harry's arms, crying out loud. June saw this scene and quickly left the room, giving the two of them the room to be alone. Kiki's gratitude turned into passion, and her courage also increased. She actually took the initiative to passionately kiss Harry. Her hands and feet were wrapped tightly around Harry, hugging him and not letting go. After Harry was stunned for a moment, he also began to respond to this passion. After the plane landed on Allen Island and the plane came to a stop, Harry carried Kiki in his arms out of the plane, who could not walk on her own. Harry returned to the manor. While he was not physically tired, he was emotionally drained and finally went to rest. Although the sky had begun to turn dark, he still had Kiki in his arms, and they both fell into a deep sleep. On the other hand, the Sanderson family manor was supposed to hold the wedding ceremony between Sanderson and Princess Kiki today. As the day progressed, the manor was filled with guests and reporters. There were guests from all over the world, but to everyone's surprise, the Sanderson manor was not set up to hold an elegant wedding. There was a mess everywhere, and it didn't seem like a wedding ceremony was going to be held at all. Considering the power and influence of the Sanderson family in California, no one thought that something bad had happened. They thought it was some kind of odd theme for the wedding. The looming gloom in the manor sparked rumors which sent the public abuzz. However, a moment later, something unexpected happened. The reporters were being called one by one into the manor. Everyone was in shock. According to the rules, the wedding between the Sanderson family and the royal family was not allowed to be filmed by reporters, but now every media person was being called into the manor. Not only the big authoritative media, but even the reporters from the tabloids were allowed to enter the venue openly. For a moment, the distinguished guests were very dissatisfied. They were all superior people, yet they had to mingle with a group of reporters at the same occasion. The Sanderson family doesn't know the rules. This is too rude. How can they call random media journalists to the wedding venue? said a noble who thought highly of himself.
Ridiculous. This is ridiculous. The Sanderson family is disrespecting us, said another noble.
Huh. Do you think you could be so arrogant just because you control the royal family and the entire Los Angeles? A fat man said.
Everyone, I think we can leave now. It's fine if we don't attend such a ridiculous wedding,
one of the elite women screamed. All the guests expressed their dissatisfaction. But even so, no one from the Sanderson family stopped to give an explanation. On the open grassland of the manor where the wedding ceremony was going to be held, tables and chairs were placed around hazardously. From the looks of it, the arrangement didn't seem like a wedding ceremony, but rather a press conference. The guests who were about to leave were interested. They wanted to see why the Sanderson family was keeping them in suspense. When the Sanderson family appeared in front of them, everyone was stunned. Sanderson himself appeared in front of everyone and was dressed in an eye-catching attire. It was normal for him to appear in front of the camera in very expensive suits, but what he had been wearing was a bit garish. The green hat on Sanderson's head was not something they had seen someone wear to a press conference before. It was a distinctly bright green that drew people's attention. Seeing Sanderson wearing this green hat immediately made everyone look at each other in confusion. "Is this some kind of joke? What is he wearing?" said a woman using a hand fan to cool herself.
"Maybe it's a family tradition for their family during a wedding,"
said a more modestly dressed woman.
"Yeah, it must be," a woman in red said. "California is indeed a very special place. I admire it very much," agreed the woman behind her.
Those guests from the other countries followed the customs when they entered the country. Seeing Sanderson, they wanted to laugh but held their tongue because they did not wish to be rude. The reporters were even more confused as they discussed animatedly. Why is Sir Sanderson wearing a green hat? Could it be that he is flaunting his wealth? Maybe it's from some famous designer, a young reporter asked quietly. At this moment, Sanderson sat silently in front of them. The expression on his face was as if he had just eaten mud. But when he thought of the terror of being controlled by the Parker family, he could only bite the bullet and continue to hold his press conference. If he angered the Parker family, his family would be ruined. "Everyone, please calm down. Sanderson is holding a press conference today that will answer all of your questions," the Sanderson family butler said into the microphone. Everyone immediately quieted down. Their faces were filled with anticipation. Sure enough, Sanderson coughed a few times. When he finally spoke, he shocked everyone. "I, Sanderson, represent my entire family. I hereby announce that I will resign my engagement with Princess Kiki." Sanderson stammered as he spoke, avoiding eye contact with the reporters. The entire area erupted in chatter. They did not expect to hear such news on the wedding day. One by one, they opened their laptops and started typing crazily, vowing to record all the details of the scene around them. This was unbelievable news. The Sanderson family that controlled Los Angeles was actually going to give up on their engagement with the royal family. A reporter mustered up their courage and couldn't help but stand up and ask, "Mr. Sanderson, may I ask why you want to cancel the engagement with Princess Kiki?" Sanderson replied, "It is to give up on my engagement with Princess Kiki, not to cancel. You have to understand this. Don't misinterpret my words." The reporter asked doubtfully, "Is there a difference?" Sanderson said coldly, "Princess Kiki's status is noble. I am not qualified to be with her. Only the most noble person in the world can have Princess Kiki. Therefore, I'm giving up the engagement." People were in an uproar, and most reporters got out of their chairs to ask questions. It was clear now that everyone understood why they were here. "Therefore, I'm giving up the engagement." Sanderson and his very powerful family were submitting to someone who they saw as superior to themselves. A guest asked, "May I ask if you gave up the engagement because you were cheated on?" Sanderson's expression turned ugly. He simply couldn't answer this kind of question. "This has nothing to do with today's press conference. I have gathered everyone here because I want to publicly announce that I have given up on the engagement. Therefore, today's wedding will not be held anymore. Thank you for your concern." Sanderson gritted his teeth and said. After saying that, he did not care about the many distinguished guests. He just turned around and left. However, even though Sanderson left, the servants in the manor couldn't leave. They became the targets of the guests and reporters to explore and ask probing questions. Indeed, an embarrassing moment for the Sandersons. "Hurry up and tell me what's going on," said a balding reporter. I'm sorry, I'm just a servant. I can't speak on the matter," said one of the younger servants.
$100,000 if you tell me. It'll be yours.
A woman with every designer brand on her person offered the young servant.
"I'm sorry, I can't,"
he replied.
$1 million.
She yelled, but the servant ran away before his temptation took over. As the guests started to gather information, the engagement matter was basically clear. However, Harry's true identity was still unknown. From Princess Kiki's first attempt to escape the marriage to the rescue that happened last night, the Sanderson family was furious. In the end, today was a day of a great reversal in power, and the Sanderson family took the initiative to hold a press conference to give up on the marriage to save some of their dignity. This story was so exciting that it would be the breaking news for a while and might even spring its own television series for drama channels. They even wanted to look for the people from the royal family to verify the authenticity of the story. Unfortunately, the royal family of California had no statements of their own. The reporters left to go back to their studios and publish this big news. The guests left with a heart full of disgust, as if they were avoiding the plague. They were afraid that staying near the Sanderson family would somehow sully their own name and status. Most of the nobles agreed it was better to let the Sanderson family enjoy this disaster alone. And all the media outlets released this heavyweight news almost at the same time. For a moment, the entire world was in an uproar. The high and mighty Sanderson family had actually retreated with their tail between their legs. Countless people praised this piece of news. They even wanted to know who had done such a shocking feat. It was simply a marvel to behold. Watching such a powerful family bow down and cower to some mysterious force. In this world, people like to revel in the destruction of the rich and powerful. Most of them lived in the middle and lower class, and they loved to see it. A lot of them even cheered without knowing all the facts on why they had lost so much status. At this time in Harry's manor, Randy was holding his phone with one hand and holding his stomach with the other. He was laughing so hard that he couldn't even breathe.
This guy in the Sanderson family is very creative. He actually held a press conference with a green hat. He's really creative. Wearing a suit and a garish green hat is probably going to be the trend in California in the future. This won't do. I'm dying of laughter.
Harry looked at his frenzied look and helplessly said,
"Is it really that funny?" Mr. Parker, you have no idea. I have dealt with this guy Sanderson before. Too much attitude.
Harry said,
"Oh, he is the heir of his family. It's not a big deal for him to have such an attitude." "What's so great about him? So what if he's from the Sanderson family? Speaking of which, the name Kiki seemed very familiar. I think I've heard of her somewhere before." Randy suddenly fell into deep thought.
Harry picked up the teacup and blew on it.
There are many people in California who call themselves Kiki. It's not strange for the princess to have such a name. No. I just remembered that when Mr. Parker went to California to play last time, you picked up a beautiful girl. I remember that her name was also Kiki, right?" Randy asked with a face full of doubt.
Harry said indifferently,
"That's right, what's wrong?"
Randy was shocked.
"Don't tell me that the Kiki you picked up is Princess Kiki from California."
"That's right." Harry spread his hands. Randy knew about bringing Kiki back for the first time, but after that, he had forgotten about this matter. As an heir to a vast fortune, he wouldn't care about a young girl from California that was picked up by Harry. Therefore, he was an outsider who didn't know about the series of events that happened after that brief encounter.
"No, it can't be."
Harry shrugged and confirmed again.
"That's right." "Really?"
Randy was in disbelief.
"Really?"
Randy asked,
"Kiki's really a princess? Does that mean that you have turned the whole city to your side?"
Harry replied,
"The city has nothing to do with Kiki."
Randy quickly said,
"Right. What does Sanderson count as? What right does he have to have anything to do with Princess Kiki? Only Mr. Parker is the most qualified person to have a princess."
This flattery made Harry's face turn red.
"You're exaggerating." "It's not exaggerating in the least. Previously, I thought that Kiki was ridiculously beautiful, but now it seems that she was indeed unusual."
Harry asked,
"I feel that she is very normal. That place she comes from is unusual."
Randy smiled bitterly and said,
"Don't tell me that you don't know Mr. Parker. Princess Kiki is publicly acknowledged as the most beautiful princess in the history of California. one that only appears once every 10,000 years. All the men in that state have dreamt of marrying Princess Kiki.
All right, the more you talk, the more uncertain you sound. Stand up, Harry said helplessly. At this time, Kiki walked down from upstairs and hugged Harry's neck from behind. He said, "Darling, when can I go to school?" Harry said, "Rest today and you can go tomorrow." "Okay then, I will make delicious food for you now, okay?" "Okay, go ahead," Harry nodded and said, "I want to use all my effort to make the most delicious food for you." Randy gave Harry a thumbs up when he saw how lovey-dovey the two of them were. "Mr. Parker, you're awesome. Brother, I admire you so much," Harry said modestly. "Stop flattering me." When he turned around and saw Kiki busy in the kitchen like a butterfly fluttering between flowers, Harry smiled in relief. Finally, he could relax. His life had been hectic in the past, and he would be able to enjoy this life peacefully. At night, Juniper, who came back from school, was also jumping with joy when she saw Kiki had come back. The two of them went to school together. Although they were not in the same grade and their personalities were quite different, they got along really well. During dinner, Juniper sat beside Kiki and the two of them spoke very intimately. But as they talked, Juniper changed the direction of the conversation to Harry. "Brother." "What?" Harry saw Juniper's sly smile and knew that she was not thinking straight. "I need to discuss something with you." "Let's eat first. We can talk about it later," Harry said decisively. Juniper was very dissatisfied. "I haven't said anything yet. I have a classmate from the country. She always shows off that when she went to school, she always rode horses. She says that it's fun. I told her that I also have a horse at home, and it's a really special horse. She doesn't believe me and says that I'm making things up." Harry simply said, "Why don't you bring her here and show it off?" Juniper said, "That won't do. I also want to ride my horse to school and stand in front of her. I want to let her see that there is nothing so great about riding a horse to school." Harry smiled. "Are you all right? This red rabbit horse is being raised on the island. There is still a sea between here and the school. How are you going to ride it to school?" Juniper said coquettishly, "I don't care. I'm going to ride a horse to school tomorrow." Harry shook his head helplessly. He thought that this girl was getting naughtier with every passing day. In the past, she was very obedient, but now she was devil incarnate. He thought about how a child was a child, how their little minds worked and which things seemed to be the most important things in the world. Today it was riding a horse to school. Tomorrow it might be something completely different. However, Juniper was not willing to take no for an answer. She stopped eating and ran to Harry's side. She grabbed his arm and started throwing a tantrum. "Brother, just think of a way for me. I already told my classmate that I would definitely ride a horse there tomorrow. If you don't help me fulfill my promise, everyone will make fun of me." That was enough to change his mind. He had to support his younger sister. If his younger sister lost the respect of her peers, it would be the same as losing respect for her older brother. This was absolutely unacceptable. Immediately, Harry slammed the table and said, "You know what? I'll make sure you ride your horse tomorrow." Juniper smiled and narrowed her eyes. "Didn't you say that we can't ride it through the sea?" "I have one of the largest super yachts ever built. I think we can find space for a horse. Tomorrow, we will get up early and bring the red rabbit horse to the school," Harry said heroically. Juniper started to cheer. "Thank you, brother!" He kissed Harry's cheek. Harry smiled and looked at Kiki. "If that's the case, you should get up early tomorrow too. Let's go by boat." Of course, Kiki agreed. As long as she was with Harry, he was happy. Early next morning, because it would take about 2 hours to drive the boat to school, Harry resisted his strong sleep and helped prepare the boat and the horse. Juniper was so excited that she woke up earlier than everyone else. When they arrived at the pier where the yacht was docked, June had already pulled the red rabbit horse over from the stable. Harry said with concern, "So early, June. I will take her to school myself." June shook her head and said, "I will just be worried until you get back. Let me follow you, sir." "All right. Anyway, we can rest on the boat," Harry said. He pulled the red rabbit horse onto the ship. It was gifted to him by Sean, but it had considerably grown since then and was almost a head higher than Harry. After starting up the yacht, Harry was initially worried that the red rabbit horse would get seasick. If such a situation really happened, Juniper's goal would be ruined, as no one would want to ride a sick horse to school. She would not be able to show off and would even make a bigger joke out of herself. However, Harry was worried for nothing. The red rabbit horse steadily stood in the cabin and was not affected by the sea at all. He seemed to be comfortable enough to eat happily. Purple Star Academy had its own small port because the school had a sailboat teaching class. Since it was an aristocratic school, it was located by the sea. Although the port was not large, there were all kinds of sailing ships of various sizes parked inside. After parking the boat, Harry instructed June to rest on the boat. He led the horse and got off the boat with Juniper and Kiki. There was still quite a distance from the dock to their school building. Juniper screamed, "Big brother, you should also rest on the boat. I will ride the horse and take Kiki over first. After that, I will go over to my side of the school." Although Juniper had already been taught how to ride horses, that was on the island. The campus was different as it had more diverse topography and a lot more people going about their business. Harry was not keen on the idea of letting Juniper give Kiki a ride and then ride herself to class. He shook his head and said, "That won't do. If you ride your own horse, who will ride it back? Don't tell me you still want to bring your horse to class." Juniper suddenly realized, that's true. Why didn't I think of this problem? Then what should I do? According to the current height of the red rabbit horse, it was impossible for Juniper to ride it all by herself. Just the height of the stirrups were more than what her little legs could reach. Not to mention that it would be even harder to get down after going up. So at this moment, Juniper looked at the tall red rabbit horse in a daze. She was so caught up with wanting to show off to her classmates that she hadn't thought of this through. In the past, on Allen Island, if she wanted to ride a horse, it would be the servants of the manor who carried her up. But now, there was nothing she could do. Harry smiled and said, "Don't think about riding your own horse to the classroom. It's impossible to enter the corridor, so I'll take you there." Juniper was disappointed. "All right, that's what we can do." Kiki also kept smiling as she watched from the side. "Then you guys can go. I will go to the classroom myself." Harry looked at the time and shook his head. "It is late now. When you go to class, the bell will ring. You can't be late for class when you come back." Then what should we do?" "It's simple. I'll send you there. Come on." Harry jumped up on the horse and waved at Kiki. Facing the morning sun, he settled the two girls and went to class on the horse. The students on both sides of the road were also dumbstruck. Harry was calm and composed. While Juniper was shouting excitedly, Kiki remained silent and suppressed her anxiety at being the center of attention. Along the way, her head was lowered and her face was red. Although it was carrying 3 people, the red rabbit horse was tall and strong, so it was not a big problem. On the road where there were a few pedestrians, Harry even let it gallop. Parents who drove their children to school also looked shocked when they saw it. The high school classes in Purple Star Academy were a little earlier than the classes in the middle school. A large number of students were walking towards the building one after another. They saw a group of people sitting on a horse in front of the building. They had never seen anything so extravagant before in their lives. "I didn't know you could ride a horse to school, and such a handsome horse, too," said the boy with round glasses. "Why didn't I think of this before?" said another one. "Hey, isn't that the campus belle of our high school, the California beauty, Kiki?" said the fat boy. "Who is that man? He is so pretentious. Bringing these girls to class riding on his horse. Does he think he is better than all of us?" One of the onlookers screamed. "Watch your tongue. The man is Kiki's boyfriend. A while ago, he had beaten up Titus in front of all the teachers and students in the school." His friend shushed him. "What? He was the one who beat up Titus until he was knocked out?" "Yeah." Harry heard the whispers in the distance and did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not know that he had become a famous person in the school. It was just that these students did not know about the changes in the school's management. If they knew that the Purple Star Academy was now Harry's property, they would probably be even more shocked. A noble academy like the Purple Star Academy was not something that could be bought just because someone wanted to. Harry jumped off the horse and carried Kiki down. "Kiki!" A surprised cheer came from afar. The two of them turned around and saw Jessie. "Jessie, long time no see," Kiki happily greeted her. Jessie excitedly ran over. "Where have you been all this time? Why didn't you say anything and not come to school? I thought you weren't going to come back." Kiki said awkwardly, "I had something urgent I had to take care of at home, so I rushed back. I'm sorry." Jessie pouted and said, "To think I was sad for so long, you didn't even inform me when you came back. This is a big surprise for me." Kiki smiled and did not say anything else. She had never told Jessie about her return to California, even though it was because of the press conference held in the Sanderson family manor that the whole world was in chaos. But Jessie, a student, had never associated this matter with Kiki. Thus, until now, she still thought that Kiki was just an ordinary person and did not know that she was the Princess of California. Jessie was still very happy to see her back and coming to school, for it would mean that they could continue their friendship. Even more, she would get to see the very handsome Harry. Now that Harry was riding a tall red rabbit horse, he looked like a prince in a fairy tale. It made Jessie's heart almost explode. "Mr. Parker, hello," Jessie said shyly. Harry smiled and replied, "Ha! Long time no see. You're looking well." Jessie's face suddenly turned red. "Mr. Parker, you look so handsome today." Harry was speechless. He had thought that he had looked handsome every day. After greeting, Kiki saw Juniper, who was still sitting on the horse. She was puzzled again. She asked, "Who is this?" Kiki introduced, "This is Harry's younger sister, Juniper. She is also in our school and is in middle grade." "Ah, so you are Juniper. I'm Jessie, a good friend of Kiki. Hello." Jessie happily greeted, but Juniper did not smile and coldly snorted. "Hello." Jessie was a little confused. This was clearly the first time they had met. Where did such hostility come from? But she did not know that Juniper, this little girl, was protective of her family. Other than the family members, she would be dissatisfied if anyone tried to get close to Harry. Especially with Jessie's current infatuated look, she was even more disinterested. She thought in her heart, "Big brother is mine, Sister Kiki is fine, but who do you think you are?" Harry did not know what Juniper was thinking, but seeing that it was getting late, he urged, "You guys hurry up and go to class. I still have to send Juniper over." Harry mounted the horse once again and pulled the reins, bringing Juniper towards the middle of the campus. Jessie, on the other hand, pulled Kiki with a reluctant look and stood at the same spot, waving goodbye to Harry. "Huh." Juniper turned her head to look and snorted in dissatisfaction. Harry was confused. "What's wrong, June?" Juniper said. "Nothing. I just don't like Jessie." Harry suddenly laughed. "You are not cute anymore. Why do you not like anyone?" Juniper said angrily, "Brother, how can you say I am not cute anymore?" Harry smiled and said, "Didn't you also dislike Lara when she first came to the manor? You even went to report to your sister June." Juniper immediately said, "I did it all for your sake. You brought an unknown woman home. Of course you have to be careful." Harry shook his head and said, "Lara is not an unknown person. This time she saved your sister, Kiki. It was all because of Lara that she was able to come back to us safely." Regarding Lara's true identity, Harry did not tell Juniper. He was afraid that she would not be able to accept it and it would scare her. After all, a robot that looked like a human but had a metal structure for a body was really hard to believe. Moreover, when Lara turned to the power source on her head, the appearance was indeed a little horrifying. It was better for children to not see it. When it came to saving Kiki, Juniper's interest was piqued. She immediately turned around and said to Harry, "By the way, I haven't asked how you rescued Sister Kiki. Is Sister Kiki really the Princess of California?" Harry shook his head and said, "You're still young and it is not good to know too much. Focus on learning for now. When you are older, I'll tell you more. As for Kiki, she's indeed a princess." Juniper said unhappily, "I'm already on the first day of school and you still treat me as a child." Harry smiled. "You're skipping a grade, right? The kids the same age as you are starting their first year in middle school." "Huh, I'm not talking to you anymore," Juniper said unhappily. Harry knew that she was throwing a childish tantrum, so he did not mind. A boy was so busy gawking at the horse that he walked into a lamppost. When Juniper saw this, she started roaring with laughter. When he faced Juniper's merciless mockery, he burst into tears. Juniper curled her lips. "Silly boy, just a few laughs have sent him crying." Harry said helplessly, "Is that your classmate? It's not good to laugh at him like this." Juniper did not care. "What's wrong with that? This guy's very wretched. He looks at the pretty girls in the class with a sneaky look all day long. He's a toad." Harry was speechless. The reason Juniper acted so arrogantly was not only because of her personality, but also because Harry's newfound power had given her a boost. Arriving at the school building, Harry pulled on the reins and said to Juniper, "All right, I'll leave you here. You can go to class yourself." Juniper was unwilling. "Aw, how can this be? Other than this boy, I haven't seen any other students. How can anyone prove that I rode here today?" Harry was speechless. "You can't expect me to take you to the class on the horse. This is absolutely impossible." Juniper's class was on the third floor. This kind of behavior was childish and did not suit Harry well at all. No way. Anyway, you promised me that you would bring me to my classmates on horseback. Juniper started to act coquettishly. Even so, you can't ride to class. I don't care, I want to. All right, then wait here for a while. Maybe we can meet your classmates. Harry comforted her. Okay, wait a moment. I must let everyone know that I came on horseback today, Juniper insisted. At this moment, standing on the entrance of the teaching building while riding on a horse was already enough to show off. The students who came to see Juniper could not look away. Fortunately, not long after, Harry's savior arrived. The female classmate who bet with Juniper that she didn't have a horse appeared. Juniper saw from afar and started to shout. Now you've seen that I do own a horse and I can ride it to school. What else do you have to say? The fat girl in the distance saw Juniper riding an unusually tall horse and her face turned pale. She stammered. You really have a horse at home? Huh, didn't you see it? This horse of mine is the rarest in the world. Even the best horse breeders in the world don't have a horse as good as this one, Juniper said proudly. The fat girl looked at the red rabbit horse in shock, and her expression became very ugly. Although she was unwilling to admit it, Juniper was right. She came from the country and her family did indeed run a horse farm. She had seen a lot of horses since she was young, so she knew a lot about horses. Just by looking at the figure of the horse that Juniper was riding, one can tell that it was not an ordinary horse. The blood-red hair glittered under the sunlight. You win. After a long while, the fat girl finally said with difficulty, Ha! It's good that you know. You have to admit defeat after making a bet. You can't pretend you didn't make this bet. Huh. I won't be shameless. The more Harry heard Juniper talk, the more wrong he felt. He quickly said, Wait, Juniper. You made a bet? This is not something a child can do. Juniper said coquettishly, Brother, I was confident I would win. All right, I should go to class. You should hurry up and leave. As she spoke, she jumped off the horse and anxiously sent Harry away with a guilty conscience. Harry looked at the fat girl who had a look of unwillingness on her face. She knew that she must have been fooled by Juniper again. However, as long as it was not too much, it was fine for a child to do things. Too much interference made the fat girl even more embarrassed. She nodded and instructed, Don't go too far. Got it. You're long-winded. Go back quickly. Sister June is still waiting for you on the boat. After saying that, she pulled the fat girl over and ran into the school building. Harry suddenly felt bored. He had wasted so much effort, yet it was over so quickly. He thought that she was going to show off for a long time, but in the end, she just let a fat classmate see her and only said a few words. Harry couldn't help but shake his head. He pulled the reins and turned the horse around, heading towards the port where the boat was parked. When they returned to the boat, June was indeed resting. She had been really tired recently. Not only did she have to follow and protect Harry at all times, she had to lead a team to rescue Kiki all the way out in California. She had not had much time to rest. Right now, the school had a large number of wolf guards in charge of security. She was confident Harry, Kiki, and Juniper would be safe. Harry was very safe here, so June did not follow him. She made the best use of her time to rest in the boat's bedroom. When she returned, there was still a lot of daily documents that needed to be approved. After Harry came to the boat, he took the Red Rabbit horse back to the warehouse. He did not wake June up and drove the boat back to Allen Island by himself. After returning to the island and parking the ship, Harry quietly walked into June's bedroom to see if she was resting well. He didn't intend to wake her up. He wanted to let her rest a little more. Who would have thought that just as he opened the door, he would wake June up? It's you. Are you sending Juniper and Kiki back? Harry said, Yes, I've already sent them to their classes. Now we're returning to the island. June was shocked. What? They're already back? I actually did not know it. It was really my dereliction of duty. Sir, I'm sorry. Harry waved his hand and said, Don't take this matter seriously. To be honest, I see that you've been quite tired recently. Why don't I give you a break and have a good rest? June lost her colors and said, How can that be? I am your personal bodyguard. I absolutely cannot rest. Harry shook his head helplessly and said, Forget it. Go back to the manor and sleep for a while. Don't tire yourself out. Yes, sir, June replied softly. Harry got off the boat and rode back to the manor with June on his horse. There were other servants in the Red Rabbit horse who led June back to the stable. Harry forced June to go back to her bedroom. Sir, I have already rested. There is no need to rest anymore. Harry said seriously. No, now lie on the bed. As he spoke, he pulled June over and pressed on her shoulder to make her lie on the bed. This motion could be taken out of context and be seen as something more than a friendly gesture. Harry did not think for a moment, but June's face suddenly turned red as if it was burning. Strictly speaking, June wanted to prevent Harry from embarrassing her, but could not hit Harry under any circumstances. She could only follow Harry's instructions and lie down. Speaking of which, this was the first time Harry came to June's bedroom. The room was not big, and the furnishings inside were very simple. It could be seen that June did not spend much effort to arrange the room that she was resting in. She had never been the kind of person to decorate her room with the things that she enjoyed. She saw them only as distractions. In June's place, it was just a simple bed, a wardrobe, and a table. Harry looked around and felt very regretful in his heart. Harry really cared about her, his most loyal personal bodyguard. At this moment, June was lying on her bed and did not know what to do. Sir? Harry felt touched for some reason. He suddenly bent down and kissed June on the forehead. He said gently, Rest well. Leave the rest to me. June answered shyly with a red face. Harry smiled and turned around to leave. After closing the door, June was stunned for a while. Then she turned around and covered herself with the blanket. When he came to his study, Harry looked at the pile of documents on the table. He sighed in his heart. It seemed that he needed to find some secretary who could help him with his work. Otherwise, June would always be busy doing it all by herself. It would not be worth it if she was exhausted. Thinking of this, he sat down and began to flip through the documents and personally deal with them. However, because he was used to leaving the manager behind, it was not suitable for him to work by himself now. Just thinking about it gave him a headache. After a while, Harry sighed again. He really did not know how June managed all these properties in an orderly manner all by herself. After throwing down a processed document and taking up one from the pending folder, Harry was stunned for a moment. The document was about the follow-up project of filling up the sea and building islands around the reflecting moon island. Previously, Harry had planned to build an employee residential area on a few artificial islands. When the Star Moon Entertainment in Maryland relocated, the employees would have a place to live. Now that the residential buildings on the island had been built, they could be put to use. After pondering for a moment, Harry's eyes lit up. In this way, the relocation of the Star Moon Entertainment's headquarters in Maryland could officially begin. After the relocation, Harry was ready to make some personal changes. He asked Chelsea to leave her position as the CEO of Star Moon Entertainment and leave it to Barry and Felton to manage. Then Chelsea, who had management skills and was good at handling daily matters, could come and be his secretary. With Chelsea's super strong assistance, June would also be able to relax a lot. But the problem was whether Barry and Felton could be the CEO of Star Moon Entertainment. Jen was a good candidate. She had a very close relationship with Harry, but Jen was only interested in clothing design. She probably did not like being the CEO. After considering it for a while, Harry decided to do it as he had planned. Anyway, he did not expect the Star Moon Entertainment to have much development. He would leave it to Barry and Felton to maintain. The company's current profitability channels were almost all earned by Manson's after he filmed 2 movies. In the company, Manson basically had a lot of authority. Although it belonged to Star Moon Entertainment, the company did not have the authority to manage Manson. Instead, it directly belonged to Harry. Thinking of this, Harry made up his mind. He picked up the phone and called Chelsea. Chelsea was very surprised when she received Harry's call. Harry, the big boss finally remembered me? Facing Chelsea's teasing, Harry could only accept it. After all, he had neglected Star Moon Entertainment headquarters for a long time. He was having a lot of fun bringing Director Manson and the relevant crew members along. The crew that had been left in Maryland was left to think horrible things about their boss. This caused the staff at the headquarters to think that these people had lost their favor at the boss's place. Harry rubbed his nose and said, We previously said that we were ready to move the headquarters. How is it going now? When it came to serious matters, Chelsea did not joke around anymore. She replied, It has been prepared for a long time. I was just waiting for you to arrange it. Harry nodded and said, All right, the construction off the coast of Florida is almost done. You can move here in a few days. I want to as soon as possible. The earlier I move there, the earlier I can start work. Then let's do it tomorrow. Tomorrow? Okay, I'll arrange a plane to go there. Okay. After ending the call, Harry called Wayne over again. Sir, you're looking for me? Yeah, tomorrow will you bring about 20 people from the Wolf Guard and fly my plane to Maryland to pick up Chelsea and the others? You still want to bring the wolf guard? Is it because of the background that you will encounter danger? Wayne asked curiously. Generally speaking, the wolf guard was in charge of daily defense. Once Harry started gathering his men, it would be a tricky situation. Harry waved his hand and said, "You misunderstood. The Star Moon Entertainment headquarters will be moved here tomorrow. Bring some people with you to help carry things and bring them over." "Ah, so it's like that. I understand. Okay, then there's nothing else. You can withdraw." "Yes, sir." After sending Wayne away, Harry called Mr. Cross again. "Sir." "Mr. Cross, the Star Moon Entertainment headquarters will be moved over tomorrow. The staff and office facilities need to be settled. The office and living quarters that were prepared earlier need to be tidied up." "Okay, sir, I'll arrange for someone to do it right away." After hanging up the phone, Harry looked at the documents in front of him and started to have a headache again. He thought that Chelsea would come tomorrow. It was better to keep it for her to handle. Now that he had nothing else to do, he would go and see Mr. Cross. He got up and left the manor. He called Lara to follow his side and flew the helicopter towards the artificial island. According to Harry's plan, the artificial island was not just an island, but an archipelago. On this island group, some of the islands were specialized commercial offices, and some of the islands were specialized residential areas. They were all arranged for their own companies and employees. In the future, the entire Reflecting Moon Island and the surrounding subsidiary islands would be Harry's core industry circle. He would gather all the manpower and resources, making it convenient for him to manage them. First, they arrived at the residential island. Under Lara's control, the helicopter steadily landed on the helicopter pad. The reason why they came here first was because Harry considered the relocation of the entire entertainment company's headquarters. The work definitely would not be restored immediately. The staff had to first have time to adapt to the environment. However, after the employees came, they would definitely have to settle down at the place where they lived first. As the saying went, before the troops and horses were mobilized, food and grass would be moved first. It was about the importance of logistics. After getting off the plane, Harry slowly walked towards the center from the outer area of the island. This place was full of residential buildings. There were villas lined up in a row, and there were many floors in small, high-rise residential buildings. There were also specialized clinics, supermarkets, entertainment clubs, and kindergartens in the community. In the future, there were more people living here, if needed. Harry could also build an elementary school or even a high school nearby. It would completely satisfy the daily needs of the residents, and it would not be inconvenient for them to live solely on the island chain. On a few buildings, the housekeepers arranged by Mr. Cross were doing the last cleaning work. After they were done tidying up, they would also add some basic household furniture and appliances. The ordinary multi-story and small high-rise residences were for the grassroots employees. Based on the contributions and years of the service each employee made to the company for long periods of time and contributions, Harry would directly reward them with a set of residences. The others would only use it as a dormitory. They would live in it for free and would not be given out other rewards. The company's upper management would stay in the villa district. It was also a temporary residence, but in the future, according to the reward and punishment policy, it could be given out as a gift. Although there was a gap, it was also divided according to the levels. After all, the workplace had to pay attention to the relationship between the upper and lower ranks, so there must be a difference in the treatment. Moreover, the higher the position, the better living conditions would be given. This was also another kind of motivation for people to compete and improve. After walking around the residential area, Harry went to the business office. Comparatively speaking, this place was more prosperous. After all, Harry was going to build a small city here in the future. In the current Reflecting Moon Island, because of the flourishing tourism industry, there was an endless stream of tourists coming and going. The commercial district that Harry had planned to build the island had also become useful, and stores could begin to open. Now, he didn't need to take the initiative to attract businesses. There were countless people who came to find Harry's Reflecting Moon Island Development Company to cooperate with him without any publicity. Harry did not want to earn all the money by himself. That would be too tiring. As long as he made the island's plan, the rest would be rented out. As long as the most vibrant and potential tourism industry in Reflecting Moon Island was still in his hands, it would be fine. After arriving at the business island, Harry also took a stroll around the outer region before arriving at the center of the island. There were a few 20, 30 stories tall buildings built here, and one of them was the one the Star Moon Entertainment wanted to move into. Of course, It was impossible for such a small building to take up the entire building. However, Harry had kept all the floors at the top of the building. Currently, Star Moon Entertainment's scale was considered small, despite making a lot of money so quickly. Although there were 300 to 400 people, it was still not enough to fill up the building. Walking into the building, Harry saw that the elevator was connected to electricity, so he nodded in satisfaction. He thought that the progress was not bad. The electricity had been connected. It was estimated that the fresh water supply would be started soon. Otherwise, if there was no water or electricity, the employees wouldn't be able to work even if they moved in here. They took the elevator all the way to the 21st floor. From here on up, they would be able to find places in the Star Moon Entertainment. After the elevator door opened, Harry walked out. However, he immediately frowned. Harry was very dissatisfied when he saw that the corridor was filled with the waste left behind from the renovation. According to what Mr. Cross said, he had already arranged for people to clean it up. The residential area had almost been cleaned up. They had even started moving the furniture inside. Why was it still messy here? After a few steps, Harry had a rough idea of what was going on. From the corridor, he could hear a group of people laughing and playing not far ahead. When Harry went over, he saw that these people were all wearing housework uniforms. Now, not only were they not working, but they were also even sitting on the ground in groups of 3 to 5, playing cards. Harry was so angry that he fumed. He shouted, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" Those who were playing cards were shocked by the loud yell. They all turned their heads to look at Harry. Seeing that it was a young man they did not know, they did not take it to their hearts. They still held the cards in their hands and did not put them down. There was even a fierce-looking man with a fierce face. He glared at Harry and said fiercely, "Are you blind? Can't you see what we are doing?" Harry became even angrier when he saw that these people were still fearless after being seen by him. "You guys were sent by the housekeeping company to do cleaning, right? How can you play cards if you don't work properly during work hours?" When the fierce-looking man heard Harry's accusation, he threw the cards on the ground. "Hey, you so bad-tempered. Who are you? Are you so bored that you want to meddle in other people's business?" The person beside him who was playing cards with him muttered, "You can talk whenever you want. Why did you throw away your cards? It wasn't easy for me to get a good hand." The fierce-looking man had an impatient look on his face. "Shut up. You had nothing. You've been unlucky all morning. What good cards can you possibly have?" These people didn't care about being seen by Harry at all. The main reason was that Harry was too young. From his appearance, he looked like an ordinary student. Therefore, these people never thought that Harry was the big boss of the entire Reflecting Moon Island. They thought that the development company had sent a small employee to check on them. "Jasper, it's getting late. I think we should start work. Don't delay it." Someone felt guilty and tried to persuade him. However, there were also people who did not care. "What are you afraid of? Jasper is the brother-in-law of our company's boss. There's nothing we can't handle. Don't worry, let's play a few more rounds." The fierce-looking man was the Jasper that these people called Jasper. This guy had always been ignorant and incompetent. He was used to idling around all day. If it wasn't for him being the brother-in-law of the boss of the housekeeping company, he would have been driven away long ago. Relying on this relationship, his job in the company all day long was to bring other employees out to work. Although it was called work, he actually didn't need to move at all. He was only responsible for supervising. To put it bluntly, he was just a freeloader. What was even more excessive was that not only was he lazy, but he had also led these people out with him astray. Being able to take over the job of cleaning up a big building was the most important job for a small housekeeping company. Having a job personally arranged by the boss of the whole project was something people wouldn't pass up or do the bare minimum. For this housekeeping company to be able to take up this job, apart from the salary of the workers, they could make a net profit of $50,000, $60,000. Unfortunately, these people who came to work did not have the intention to think about the company. After coming here, not only did they not do any work, but they also even started to play games. The man named Jasper looked at Harry and said with a sneer, "Kid, don't meddle in other people's business. Go and stay where you are. Don't disturb me while playing cards." Harry shook his head silently and said, "Aren't you afraid that the boss will take responsibility for your work? If you remember correctly, the requirement is that all the floors above the 21st floor must be cleaned up today." "Hey, he really did come to check on us." Jasper was surprised. Harry didn't reveal his true identity. He said coldly, "I will give you one last chance. Put down the cards in your hands now. Pick up your tools and get to work. or face the consequences of your actions." After Harry said that, everyone except Jasper's face changed. They were just ordinary employees, and they didn't have much reliability in keeping their job. The reason why they were playing here was all because of Jasper's shout. Before Harry came, they all felt that since it was the company boss's brother-in-law who brought them here, they could play. The boss wouldn't pursue this matter too much. But now, it is different. The Reflecting Moon Island Development Company had sent someone to investigate. If they still did not know what was good for them now, the consequences would be very serious. At this point, everyone got up one after another and prepared to go and get their tools to work. Unexpectedly, Jasper shouted, "All of you, sit down. If I say something, you will move. Do you hear me?" All the housekeeping staff didn't dare to move after hearing his shout. They sat back down and didn't say anything. Harry knew that these people were probably afraid of being bullied by this Jasper guy. Plus, he had some small connections in the housekeeping company, so no one dared to offend him. Jasper liked to mess around. He had never paid attention to his work. He was a hooligan that thought the world was against him, but it was really his own actions. Last night was no different. He had had too much to drink and picked a fight with the wrong group of men. He barely got away with his life. When he came to work in the morning, he was very unhappy, so he pulled his co-workers into groups to play card games to boost his spirits. In the end, he couldn't take it anymore. These people who worked were all honest and were easy to con. Who could play cards better than him? Jasper won one game after another. He was extremely happy in his heart, as if he had vented all the grievances he had suffered from last night's loss. Thus, he forgot about it while playing, until Harry came. Everyone was stunned to find that the morning had passed very quickly while they were slacking. Jasper also knew that he had caused trouble for his brother-in-law's company today, so he felt a little regretful. But thinking about it, Harry threatened them. These workers were really obedient, making him feel a little awkward. This made Jasper unhappy. People like him had a few screws loose. Once he lost his reputation, he would do anything. Now that his face was gone, his temper flared up. "Kid, you came to check us out, right? All right, enough. Now that you've seen us, go back to where you came from." Harry sneered and said, "And leave you guys to continue playing after I leave, right? I think you guys should stop entirely and go home. You're causing a delay." These people earned money through hard labor, and they were exhausted. After working tirelessly for an entire day, a large portion of the money they earned had to be taken away by the company. It was really pitiful. No matter what, since they had come here to take on the job, they had to concentrate on completing the task at hand. What has happened now? The time was already tight, and Chelsea would bring the employees here tomorrow. Now that they did not make the best use of the time to finish the job, all the work was delayed. When he heard Harry's impolite words, Jasper also exploded with anger. "What the? You still dare to scold me? Who gave you the courage to do so? Ah, you dare to threaten me? Do you want me to cripple you right now?" Harry said indifferently. "I really didn't think that you would have the guts. Come over and try." "Heh, pretending to be strong. Fine. Stand still if you have the guts. Don't run." After saying that, Jasper grabbed a stick from the ground and walked towards Harry with his arms raised. When the others saw this, they were really frightened. A few of them were worried that this matter would become too big of a problem and not end well. They mustered up their courage and pulled Jasper. They tried to persuade him with good words. "Jasper, he is just a child. Don't bother with him. How about we go and work first? Let him continue to play cards with you." Jasper twisted. "No, this kid is obviously looking down on me. Today, I have to teach him a lesson." Harry snorted and said, "Don't stop him. Let him try. I guarantee that he won't be able to get out of this building today. Also, don't work anymore. I'll go to another company to take over this job." When Jasper heard this, he became even more furious. "Who do you think you are? Just because you came to check on us, you want to change companies? I will put it this way. No one in Florida would dare to accept a job that I can't do." "Ha!" Harry was too lazy to answer. He sneered and picked up his phone to make a call. "Mr. Cross, the housekeeping company that came to clean the building today, is not only lazy, but also has a very bad attitude. Contact their boss now and have them leave Reflecting Moon Island in the future. Let another company fill their place." Mr. Cross was at a loss for a moment after hearing this, and then he came back to his senses. He knew that his employer was going to the business island. He must have found something wrong, so he replied immediately, "Yes, I understand, sir. I will do as you instructed." "Okay, let's hurry up and find a reliable housekeeping company to do the cleaning." Harry hung up the phone after saying that. In the room, Jasper and his workmates were also at a loss. They had no idea what Mr. Parker's identity was. Why didn't he tell them he had a high status? This was a bit illogical. Why would someone with a high status come personally to check on the cleaning crew? Harry just looked very young and looked like a small employee. However, his tone just now was very scary. Jasper sneered. "You really are a toad calling someone to intimidate us. Who are you trying to scare?" He didn't believe that Harry was a senior member of the company. Which senior executive would not stay in the office and enjoy the cool air of the air conditioner? Who would be stupid enough to come here? Jasper thought. "If you don't believe me, then come and attack me. Let's see what happens next," Harry said indifferently. Jasper's hot temper was ignited again. After hearing Harry's words, he immediately glared at him. "Fine, kid. You said it yourself. Today, I just don't like you, and I want to teach you a lesson." After saying that, he struggled free from the pull of the worker beside him. He raised the stick and swung it at Harry. When the people present saw that Harry didn't even move, they knew that he was still too young. They were scared silly. Perhaps he turned his head or covered his eyes, but he couldn't bear to see what happened next. In the end, a cracking sound was heard, followed by another miserable cry. Everyone's heart trembled. The scene they imagined was that Harry would be on the floor, bleeding on the floor. Listening to this miserable sound, the stick might have been broken. There was also a high chance that his skull would be cracked. Some of them really couldn't hide anymore. They secretly raised their heads and looked over, but in the next moment, their jaws dropped in shock. Harry was still standing in the same spot, perfectly fine. He hadn't moved at all from the beginning to the end. Jasper, on the other hand, was lying on the ground, rolling on the ground with his hands covering his face. In the room, an outrageously beautiful woman had appeared out of nowhere and was slowly retreating behind Harry. Everyone looked at each other for a while before they were all stunned. What happened just now?" said the skinny worker. "I don't know. I just heard a cracking sound." "Then," said the worker who had skin like leather. "Who is this woman? When did she get here?" said the really buff worker. These people were discussing in shock. For a moment, they forgot that there was Jasper rolling on the ground in pain. At this moment, no one cared about whether he lived or died. They were all looking at the woman behind Harry with a dumbfounded expression. Even an idiot would understand that it must be this woman who attacked just now. She actually beat Jasper as easily as tearing down a paper. Jasper had always been rude and unreasonable. It wasn't just because his brother-in-law was the boss. Moreover, he had a robust physique, and his face was fierce. Anyone who saw him would know that he was not a good match to go against in a fight. But now, it was unexpected. Jasper, who had always been imposing, was actually defeated by a little woman. When he swung the stick at Harry's head, a woman suddenly rushed in from the corridor outside. Without saying anything, she threw a punch at the stick. Not only did she break the stick into 2 pieces, but she also hit Jasper's face. At that moment, he couldn't stop his tears and snot, and blood kept flowing out of his nose. Where did this woman come from? Jasper finally managed to suppress the pain, and he took a deep breath and asked. Harry didn't answer, but Lara had surprised him. Her tone was as cold as if her voice had frozen in her throat. "I'll say it one time. If you attack my boss again, I will not just break your nose, but I will crush your head. If you don't believe me, try it for yourself." Everyone exclaimed in shock. Such a special way of addressing made everyone's imagination run wild. To actually address Harry as boss, what did this mean? Adding on the fact that Lara was standing half a body behind Harry and had a very orderly manner, Lara's respectful attitude towards Harry indicated that there was a problem. Harry was not some ordinary employee at all. His background was too great. "Who exactly are you?" Jasper couldn't believe it. But before he could finish, his phone rang. "Hello, brother-in-law." "You ingrate. Don't call me brother-in-law. You're in big trouble, okay?" On the phone, the owner of the housekeeping company, Jasper's brother-in-law, scolded him. Before he hung up the phone, he only said one sentence. "Take everyone back to the company office immediately." Hearing the busy tone on the phone, Jasper was even more confused. What was going on? He thought. After Harry called Mr. Cross, he immediately started to take action. He first found another company to do housework and quickly arranged for people to take over the contract they had signed with the previous company. Then, he ordered the people of Wolfguard to go to Jasper's company and force them to move out of Reflecting Moon Island. The boss of the company was dumbfounded. He didn't understand why they would force him to leave. He begged his grandpa and grandma to see Mr. Cross. Only then did he understand the reason behind the incident. President Mr. Cross, I know I was wrong. This matter is really my brother-in-law messing around. I will replace him now, okay? Please don't chase my company away from the island. Looking at this little boss whose face was covered in tears, Mr. Cross felt helpless as well. This was the second time something had happened to the housekeeping company. Last time it was also because of a boss's relative that he offended Mr. Parker. Mr. Cross shook his head and directly left with a flick of his sleeve. Regarding this little boss who was implicated, Mr. Cross would never sympathize with him. It was his fault for not being virtuous. He had to eat the bitter fruit that he had planted. The reason why the little boss was so unwilling to be chased away was because people with discerning eyes could tell how big of a business opportunity the reflecting moon island in the future would be. Although housekeeping earned a small amount of money nowadays, if they could plant their company early and their services grew with the island, then they would make a lot of money in the future. Reflecting Moon Island was originally a newly developed market. It was not easy for him to get into the camp and gain a foothold. Who would have thought that his brother-in-law would ruin it? After Mr. Cross shook off the little boss who was howling like a dog, he brought another small team of Wolf Guard and rushed to the building. It happened to be the time when Jasper questioned Harry's identity. Mr. Cross was a very smart person. The reason why he rushed over was because he was afraid that his boss would suffer a loss. Currently, only Harry was in the building. Fortunately, Mr. Cross took a quick look and knew that his boss was fine. However, the person lying on the ground was not in good condition. When he saw Lara, who was behind Harry, Mr. Cross was slightly stunned in his heart. He originally thought that June had followed his boss out, but Lara was someone he did not know. However, these were all the thoughts in his mind, and he was just slightly puzzled. There was still proper business in front of him. Mr. Cross came in front of Harry and blamed himself. "Sir, it's because I did not make the correct arrangements. I failed because you were concerned and made a trip to double-check my responsibilities." Harry shook his head. "No need to say that. Even I didn't expect these people to slack off to such an extent. They didn't do any work at all and still had the mood to play cards. I really admire them." Mr. Cross also shook his head and said, "Sir, you should rest for a while. Leave these people to me." Harry did not want to involve himself in these boring matters anymore. He nodded. "I'll follow Lara to the upper floor to take a look at everything. I'll leave this place to you." After saying that, he turned around and left. He left happily, but the people from the housekeeping company were all dumbfounded. They didn't know Harry, but they knew Mr. Cross. He was the CEO of the Reflecting Moon Island Development Company. He had unimaginable power. The result was that this man whom they thought of so highly actually addressed the man they thought was a student as Mr. Parker. This student has to be the owner of this entire island chain if Mr. Cross shows him so much respect. Someone fell to the ground, as if their soul had detached from their body. Someone said in disbelief, "Who would have thought he would be so young? I even thought that it was a 70 to 80-year-old man." "It's too late to say anything now. We have offended such a noble man today. He doesn't even need to move his fingers. He can get us killed with just a word." Some people were so scared that they even started to tremble. After Harry left with Lara, the cautious Mr. Cross's facial expression changed immediately. He turned around and instructed the Wolf Guard. "Interrogate these people one by one. Who was disrespectful to Mr. Parker just now?" "Yes, sir," Wolf Guard replied in unison. Everyone was shocked. Mr. Cross pointed at Jasper, who was still lying on the ground, and said, "There's also this trash. He dared to attack our boss just now. Capture him and let him know the consequences of offending our boss." "Understood." The two guards of Wolf Guards dragged Jasper out of the room as if they were taking out trash. The rest of the workers froze in their place, scared out of their wits, trembling from head to toe, not daring to move at all. Harry brought Lara all the way to the roof of the building. As he stood on the platform and looked down at the entire island, a sense of pride rose in his heart. He sighed, reflecting on the life he had built for himself with the inheritance from his family. In the past, Harry liked to play games about resource management on islands. Now what stood before him was like a dream turning into reality. What was once only a few islands and a reef, now a bustling tourist destination. As it continued to develop, this place would grow to be a small town, and then it would grow bit by bit until it became a full-blown city. Harry no longer desired or coveted money. He only saw it as a string of numbers. However, this string of numbers had an extreme power. Once it was used, it could change the world. The building under his feet was currently the tallest building on the island, which gave Harry a unique view of everything that had been built. Like having the plans laid out before him, he could see the individual districts and where they would soon expand. Harry could see it all. The only gripe Harry had was that the buildings were all a bit small. This was also something that could not be helped. Harry had built the land beneath his feet to build upon to realize his dream. The problem then became how strong of a foundation could be built in the middle of the water from practically nothing. In the future, there might be even taller buildings if the foundations can be expanded and fortified further. "Sir, please step back a little. It's too dangerous to stand by the edge," Lara remembered from the side. Harry smiled. "Yes, I know. Thank you for your concern." After saying that, he was stunned for a moment. Unknowingly, Harry treated Lara as a real person. The reason was that Lara was the perfect facsimile. As long as she didn't expose her true self, no one would be able to tell that such a beautiful woman actually had a metal structure inside her body. On the surface, she looked and sounded like a normal girl. That alone was a great step in beating the natural response to seeing things that are almost human, but not quite. Lara had defeated the uncanny valley with ease. One thing that could detect her true identity would be security checkpoints like they have at airports. Harry thought about this and found it to be silly. He had long since stopped going through normal security channels. He would always take his own plane when he went out. Harry would not be so stupid as to expose Lara's identity. While he was talking to Lara, Mr. Cross called him over. "Sir, those workers have been dealt with." "Oh, this kind of problem happened because of Jasper. You didn't make things difficult for others, did you?" Harry asked. Mr. Cross shook his head. "No, I just warned them not to come here in the future. As for that Jasper guy, the wolf guards gave him a good beating and then handed him over to his brother-in-law." "Haha, serves him right. I hope he sees it as an opportunity to change his brutish ways," Harry said with a smile. Mr. Cross lowered his head and admitted his mistake. "Sir, speaking of which, it's still my fault. I let you suffer because I didn't arrange for a reliable company." Harry shook his head. "Forget it. It's just a small matter. Don't take it to heart." "Sir, you are too kind." Harry waited until the newly changed housekeeping company sent people over. He patrolled for a while and left after there were no more problems. Harry had a reason to take this matter seriously. The headquarters of Star Moon Entertainment had moved over from Maryland. While operations might not change, it was a big deal to have Harry's assets concentrated in one spot, building something for his own personal corner of the world. However, Harry could also imagine how much pressure this had placed on the employees of the company. Apart from the artists, most of the ordinary employees in the company were from Maryland. Most of the younger employees were renting and had no other commitments in Maryland, so they were happy to move. The ones who were most conflicted were those who had families. The sudden relocation would be a big ordeal for any family. They had been building their life in Maryland. Some people would be hesitant to move their whole family to keep their job. This was not a business trip. The job would require complete relocation. The time to commute back and forth with the mainland would take too long to be viable. This was the overall relocation of the company. If they wanted to stay, they would have to follow. In this way, the employees who had a family would have to make a difficult choice. Either they follow the company and continue working at Star Moon Entertainment, or they would resign and stay in Maryland to change jobs. Harry thought resigning would be the worst option, as the guarantee to find a similar job was unlikely. When Star Moon Entertainment was just established, Harry gave these ordinary employees more than twice as much as those in the same industry, not to mention those extra benefits he offered. Good jobs were already hard to find. The job they were in now could be seen as the best there is. Harry did not need to listen to the employees of the company complain to him about these things. He just knew what position they would be in from his actions. Therefore, Harry had to take responsibility and ease the concerns of his employees and let them know that they would be safe. It would be the least he could do for them. One had to have a good living environment and let people live in peace. He would make sure that any family could move to his islands and not worry about anything. Had he demanded all his employees move over so quickly, and the office looked like the mess he walked into this morning, would they even want to stay? Who knew how long it would take for them to pull themselves together again after seeing such a dismal working situation? Luckily, Harry found a solution in time. The newly changed housekeeping company arranged for 2 shifts to help clear the floors tonight. The new owner of the home management company jumped at the rare opportunity and was putting his full force behind pleasing Harry. Accepting such an urgent job and performing well would look good to Mr. Cross, and set him up to be well favored by the owner of the whole island chain. He was shocked that something good had fallen into his hands. Not to mention, in order to make the best use of his time and speed, Mr. Parker had given him an extra $100,000. After Harry finished inspecting, he went to the landing pad and said to Mr. Cross, who had been checking and rechecking all of the cleaner's work, "Tomorrow we must finish cleaning it up. Also, we need to add some more green plants. Otherwise, it will be too depressing inside." Mr. Cross said respectfully, "Sir, don't worry. I will personally supervise everything. No more accidents are allowed." "Very good. Thank you for your hard work." Harry waved his hand and said goodbye to Mr. Cross. In Maryland, Chelsea stayed in the company for the whole night and did not go back home to rest, because there were too many things to deal with. The entire company needed to be relocated. Although they had already started preparing, when they really started moving, they would realize that there were still many things that they could not finish, especially since she was the #1 manager in the entire company other than Harry. All of the responsibilities were placed on her. A few hundred people had to agree to the arrangement. They would set off smoothly from Maryland and then go to Florida to work. No matter how trivial the matter was, the middle management of the company would not dare to make any decisions at this time. They had to report it to Chelsea and wait for her to sign and agree. Fortunately, as long as the work was done, there would be a time when it was done. Seeing that the sky outside the window was already starting to brighten, Chelsea let out a breath and thought that she could finally set off. In order to send these few hundred employees to Florida together, Harry not only sent out his own private plane, but also the commercial plane of the Florida Grand Hotel was expropriated. Everyone, together with them the necessary equipment, filled up the planes and took off from Maryland Airport in succession. Harry also got up very early. In order to welcome the staff who came from afar, he had also made quite a lot of preparations on his side. Looking at the time, he estimated that it was almost time to greet them, so he called Chelsea. "How is the trip? Is everything going smoothly?" Chelsea stood on the plane and said, "Yes, I let the employees set off first. I am the last batch to leave. I'm about to board the plane." "All right, I will wait for you guys in Florida. I will also prepare a welcoming banquet," Harry said with a smile. "Thank you." Chelsea smiled. It would take about an hour and a half to travel from Maryland to Florida, but there was no large airport in Reflecting Moon Island. Although there was a runway on top of Harry's Allen Island, it could only stop a large plane, but not two large planes consecutively. It was unrealistic to park multiple large commercial planes at the same time. He could only let the employees of Maryland land the planes at Florida Airport first, then take the car that Harry arranged to the port, and then take the boat over. This problem was a little troublesome. However, there was nothing they could do about it now. Previously, when they were building the Reflecting Moon Island, although there was a large airport planned, it was a little tight due to the early stage of construction funds. In addition, the current opening of the Reflecting Moon Island was too small, so it was a waste to build a large airport. Thus, this plan was postponed. In the future, when the population of the commercial and residential areas increases and the tourism industry becomes more popular, it would be the most suitable time to build more airports. After Harry waited in the manor for more than an hour, Chelsea called. "Boss, we have successfully arrived in Florida. We saw the convoy and got everyone squared away. We are going to the port now." Chelsea was very happy to know about it. Harry instructed, "Let the convoy drive slowly. Pay attention to the safety of the road." "All right, don't worry." After hanging up the phone, Harry called June over. "Chelsea's people are all here. After all these employees are settled, we will hold a welcoming banquet in the manor tonight. Go and arrange for people to prepare." June nodded her head. "Yes, sir. Do we still need people from Mr. Banner?" Harry agreed. Yes, he had ready-made supplies for just such an occasion, which would save him a lot of trouble if an event like this came out of the blue. It was not the first time Harry held banquets in the manor. Every time he would hire the employees of Florida Grand Hotel under Randy's employment. The people of the five-star hotel were very good at organizing high-end banquets. They had held banquets several times, and Harry was very confident in using them. "Oh, right. The crew of Manson will also come back today. Don't leave them behind." Harry remembered again. "Yes, sir." After the movie box office sales of Manson's crew and all the star actors came in, Harry waved his hand and arranged for all of them to go on vacation. Now it was time for them to return. Speaking of which, Harry had not seen the beautiful ladies in the crew for a long time, and he missed them dearly. Considering the craziness of the banquet last time, Harry felt a headache coming on, so this time he had made up his mind to not get drunk. Sitting in the study room, Harry was thinking about whether he had forgotten anything else. After thinking about it, he felt that everything had been arranged very well. After a moment, Harry patted his head and laughed. He said to himself, I almost forgot about Randy's arrangement. He was too busy with his own employees to hire the staff of Randy's hotel. He forgot to invite Randy himself. Although it was just an internal banquet organized by Harry's company, it was not open to outsiders to invite themselves. Randy was his own brother, so he could not be treated like an outsider. If he really forgot about him, this guy would have to complain to Harry later. Not only Randy, but also Millie and Harvey and his girlfriend. Harry thought about it and started to shout in the group chat, Tonight my manor is holding a banquet. If you have time, come and attend. Harvey replied first. First, he sent a puzzled emoji, then a voice message. Mr. Parker, why are you holding a banquet tonight? Harry replied, The Star Moon Entertainment headquarters in Maryland moving over today. Everyone has just arrived. Let's welcome them, and it will be quite lively. Randy sent a crying emoticon, then sent a voice message. Oh my God, Mr. Parker, you're not being righteous. Why did you say so now? You should have told me earlier so that I could arrange for the trip earlier. I'm overseas now and I can't leave just yet. What do you think we should do? The reason why this guy was so upset was that he had been envious of the young ladies in Harry's entertainment company for a long time. Even if he had a girlfriend now, it would not stop his desires. You don't have to cry. It's fine if you can't come, as long as the employees of your hotel come to help, Harry said rudely. Everyone else in the group chat started to laugh at Randy. Millie started talking when the topic reached this point. There's a banquet tonight. Even I can't go. What should I do? At this moment, Randy suddenly sent a message in the group chat with Harry and Harvey. Great! Millie actually can't come. I have decided. I will fly back now. Wait for me, Mr. Parker. You must wait for me. His voice message was so hoarse that Harry felt pity for a man who had been imprisoned. He was like a starving cat, trembling at the thought of getting a mouthful of food. Harry asked, puzzled. You two are not together? Randy said excitedly. We are really not together today. Mr. Parker, this is a good opportunity for me. Harry replied directly. Get lost. Harvey sent a message in the group. I will go with Carol tonight. She is right in front of me. There is no need for her to reply. Harry sent an unknown OK sign to indicate that he had received it. Then it was Millie. She asked Randy in the group, Are you sure you are not going? Randy said helplessly, I am not going. I don't have the time. Then he sent a message in the group saying, Brother, you must keep it a secret for your brother. Life is already very difficult for me. Don't tell anyone. Harvey instantly understood. Understood. Harry smiled. All right, I won't say a word. Thank you. Randy knelt down once more. When the notification was in place, Harry closed the chat. If they continued chatting, he was worried that he would not be able to hold back and report to Millie. Brothers were brothers, and it should be fun to stab her in the back. In fact, Harry was looking forward to seeing Millie taming her boyfriend. He really wanted to see that drama unfold. Pressing down the hand that was about to make a report to Millie, Harry felt that it was better not to. Actually, Randy did not have any other intentions. He simply wanted to have a look and enjoy his time at the party. If he could not satisfy such a small request, he wouldn't be much of a brother to Randy or Harvey. Harry's phone rang. Seeing that it was Chelsea calling, Harry's heart inexplicably tightened. He looked at the time. They should still be on their way to the port by car. If they suddenly called at this time, could it be that they had run into some trouble? As expected, after picking up the phone, Harry thought that whatever he was afraid of would come. Chelsea's tone on the phone was a little helpless and also a little angry. Boss, our motorcade is blocked and we are not allowed to leave. Harry was puzzled. What's the situation? Who blocked it? Why aren't you allowed to leave? Harry was really puzzled. In the current Florida, no one would dare to be number one if he said he was the second most powerful person. Even his good brother Randy, who had been running Florida for many years, had to abdicate now. In a place like Florida, Harry's strength couldn't be seen on the surface. But in fact, everyone knew that Harry was the one who had the most power here. On the phone, facing Harry's series of questions, Chelsea said, I don't know. It's a group of morons who were driving super fast and walking all over the streets. They appear to be rich. They saw a lot of pretty girls sitting in the buses here, and they have been following us since the airport, Harry said helplessly. Not all rich kids are bad people. Chelsea hurriedly said, Sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. Harry interrupted her. All right, I understand what you mean. Are the people blocking the road agreeable? Go and tell them who I am. They will not dare to block the road again, Chelsea said helplessly and haltingly. I originally wanted to say that to them, but when I saw that the supercars they drove all had foreign license plates, I guess it might not be helpful to say it. He thought for a moment and said, How about this? There is still a small group of people from the Wolf Guards following the motorcade. Make sure they are in position to protect everyone. I'll head over myself with more guards to see if we can end this debacle. All right. It seems like I can't handle this situation here. I can only wait for you to come over and settle it yourself. I'm really sorry for giving you trouble, Chelsea said apologetically. Harry shook his head. Don't worry. It's not your fault. Before I get there, you have to be careful not to start any fights. Since these people are all driving supercars, and all of them have license plates from other places, I think they must have a lot of bodyguards with them. Yes, I understand, Chelsea replied. The reason why Harry asked Chelsea to stay calm and not be reckless was because he was afraid that there would be fewer people in the Wolf Guards. If there were any conflicts, he would be at a disadvantage. There were hundreds of employees in Star Moon Company today, and more than 2/3 of them were beautiful women. There were also the girls from the dance club in Maryland University led by Harriet. All of them had a beautiful face and a well-proportioned body. There were so many of them, and only a small team of the Wolf Guards were in charge of protecting them. Once there was a big enough fight, they would not be able to protect them. After hanging up the phone, Harry urgently called George and June over. Coincidentally, George was in the manor today, so he came very quickly. After receiving the notice, he immediately went to Harry's office. Sir, what's the matter? Yes, Chelsea and her team are in trouble. They seem to have been blocked by some rich people who came from other places, Harry said. George was surprised. What? Who is so bold as to provoke us? Harry shook his head. I'm not sure about the current situation, but from what Chelsea said, those people are very difficult to talk to. Furthermore, there is only a small group of people from the Wolf Guards. I'm afraid I have to make a round myself. Sir, I think I should go. There is no need for you to personally handle such a small matter. June, who was standing at the side, said. George agreed. That's right. There's no need for you to personally handle this kind of matter. I'll just bring some people with me. Harry shook his head. No, I'd rather be safe than sorry. Besides, since these people are so unscrupulous, they must have some background. Without status, they can't be suppressed. All right then. Sir, how many people do you need? George nodded and asked. It was a group of people from other places. How dare they block the streets of Florida like this? Harry didn't need to investigate to know that the people who could do such a thing were definitely people with extraordinary backgrounds. Otherwise, ordinary people, even moderately rich people who had some money, wouldn't dare to do such a thing. Bring 2 teams with me. In addition, with Laura, George, you will lead the team. June, you should stay in the manor and prepare for dinner, Harry ordered. Okay, sir, you must be careful. June clearly felt that it was not a big deal, but she still instructed George. You must pay attention to protecting Harry. No matter what, his safety is paramount to everything else. Don't worry, June, I understand, George promised. Although June was much younger than him, she was Harry's personal bodyguard. Her status was above everyone else. Other than Harry, June's status was the highest. Even Celeste, who had been with Harry a while ago, was not even more honorable than June. In other people's eyes, she was just a pretty woman that Harry had taken a fancy to. Her position was unshakable. Beside Harry, it did not matter how many beautiful women he met, they could not replace June. After a short discussion, Harry brought George and the others and set off. Because the transportation was limited, Harry could only choose to take a few people to the helicopter, while the rest of the Wolf Guard members followed behind on speedboats. Although they definitely couldn't arrive together, Harry didn't actually think of using a forceful method to solve the problem with the Wolf Guards as soon as they arrived. He still didn't know what was going on. If he could talk with those people, he would try his best to talk with them. If they really couldn't come to an agreement, he would be prepared. When Chelsea and the others just arrived at Florida and got off the plane was where everything had started. Such a huge and unified plane landing at Florida's airport naturally had to be prepared in advance, so runways and gates could be cleared to accommodate the arrivals. The other ordinary commercial airplanes could only wait in the air waiting for a landing opportunity after being notified by the airport flight managers. This attracted the attention of many people at the airport. It was impossible for them not to pay attention to the safety of the large airplanes arriving and parking at the same time. The other airplanes at the airport were all in a state of silence, and the broadcast had begun. All the airplanes that were about to take off immediately stopped moving to the runway, and all the passengers that were waiting for the flight to arrive had to continue waiting, because the flight they were going to take was currently in the air, and they still needed to wait for it to land after these large planes. The people at the airport immediately exclaimed, especially those who were in a hurry. They were full of complaints. However, even though they were complaining, no one really dared to do anything. After all, the airport had already arranged it to operate this way. It seemed like the planes that were about to land had very important people aboard. They could only wait with their heads bowed. They could also take the opportunity to see who had such a powerful background that the entire airport made way for them. Among them was a group of people who had just gotten off the plane and were dressed extravagantly. They were all rich people who had come from the south. Their appearance was also very shocking. The few large planes were all privately owned. After each aircraft landed, a few supercars drove down from their cargo holds, and all of them were super luxurious limited edition vehicles worth tens of millions of dollars. All of them were unique. Such a cool appearance immediately shocked the entire airport. There were even those sports car enthusiasts who were dancing with joy when they saw so many impressive cars landing in Florida. They exclaimed that it was enjoyable to watch. Some of the richer people who had connections knew that this could only be the Hughes. The Hugh family ran a jade industry. This was the specialty of South America because the jade products there were very good. In addition, the people of South America were famous for their love for jade. Hence, these people's families relied on this luxury industry to accumulate an extremely terrifying net worth. Their power and influence were even greater. Among them, the Hugh family occupied the upper echelons of the entire jade industry, not only in South America, but also in other countries. The family owned a few dozen rich mines, and the annual profit they brought in was no less than 10 billion. After running it for a few decades, their accumulated wealth was astronomical. The man that held a lot of the power was Fallon Hugh, and he brought along with him a lot of his executives that helped run his family's empire. Simply put, the Hughes family controlled the majority production of jade. Everyone relied on them to buy and sell jade and then market their own products. The Hugh family held a monopoly on jade production and was in a class of their own. The reason why they came to Florida this time was because some time ago, a jade cabbage carved from a Green Mountain jade vein had appeared. After receiving the news, the Hugh family was shocked. Such a high-quality Green Mountain jade had long been extinct. It was unbelievable that such a large piece of pristine jade could appear. Furthermore, according to the rumors, this piece of Green Mountain jade came from a newly discovered jade vein. After learning of this news, the Hugh family couldn't sit still anymore. This was because the Hugh family had been operating for so many years, and it had become a monopoly in the jade industry. Now, an uncontrollable jade mine had appeared, and this was a situation that endangered the Hugh family's status. Because they knew it was a little late, the news wasn't accurate anymore. They only knew that this jade cabbage came from a Grandmaster-level jade carver in Florida. That was why Fallon's trip to Florida had occurred. Although the Hugh family was considered a giant in the jade circle, there was nothing they didn't know about the jade. It came from the Livingston family, which was in a completely different industry, and was known distantly by the Hugh family because their businesses were so far removed. They were not the first to know, so news traveled slowly till they were aware of an incredible piece of jade. Regarding the Livingston family, they were just as much in the dark about the Hugh family. None of their business ventures needed jade to function, so they never had any formal or informal dealings. Thus, the search for clues about the jade cabbage came to an abrupt end when they arrived at the Livingston family. Sean didn't even want to comment on the questions being asked of his new masterpiece. He had no reason to talk to the Hugh family, let alone be afraid of their power. He simply dismissed them anytime they tried to interact with Sean. Although they were very angry, the Hugh family couldn't use any forceful means. After all, given the Livingston family's influence, they were powerful enough to ignore pretty much anyone they wanted. Therefore, Fallon could only go out personally and follow the sculptor of this jade stone to Florida to search for clues. There was only one goal, and that was to get the vein of the Green Mountain jade. No matter what method he used, he would secure it for his family. Otherwise, once this vein was revealed to the public, the Hugh family would lose their grip on the jade industry. Given the Hugh family's current strength, there was no need for them to be afraid. But to be at the top of any industry, they had to make sure that no one could challenge their power. In the circle of jade production, the Hugh family could cover the sky with one hand, but they were afraid that more veins could be found and rival their production, just like the Livingston family. The wealth the Livingston family had accumulated was substantial, and with a thought if Sean Livingston wanted to branch into the jade industry, it would be bad for the Hugh family. If he were to enter the circle forcefully, the Hugh family would not be able to withstand it. Therefore, during this trip to Florida, Fallon brought along hundreds of followers. One of the reasons why he showed up in such a cool way was because he heard that there was a newly developed island chain in Florida. There were some interesting sights on the island that were worth looking at. He also wanted to warn those competitors that might threaten his monopoly. This was how the Hugh family did things. Anyone who dared to snatch their production without saying a word would face the formidable counterattack of the Hugh family. In fact, Fallon's plan was very successful. Such a domineering plan and the appearance of a tycoon had caused a huge stir in the crowd. Florida Airport was not considered the biggest in the entire country, but it was a vacation paradise. There were few ordinary people coming and going, but there were many rich people on vacation. Although they were not as rich as the Hugh family, they had a lot of connections. Once the news spread, it would spread like wildfire, and it would soon spread to the entire upper circle. 100 or 2 cars worth tens of millions of dollars in total would directly land in Florida. This was indeed an amazing way to make an appearance. Nowadays, anyone who could bring a car with them and travel all over the world would undoubtedly be a super rich person. A moment ago, the entire airport was still looking at Fallon and the others in shock. When Chelsea landed with the people from Star Moon Entertainment, everyone became even more restless. Over 100 luxury buses to pick up the passengers lined up. Although it was not as luxurious as Fallon's supercars, the people who got off the planes and got onto the buses were different. There were more than 200 beautiful women. All of them had delicate and beautiful faces. There were over 100 people following them as well. They were all carrying big and small bags to the buses, which made people wonder who these people were. "I thought these beautiful girls were with those rich people, but it doesn't look like it now," said a high schooler. "Yes, it looks to be 2 separate groups of people. They just happened to come one after the other," said an older man. "What's going on?" said a young businessman. "I don't think I've seen anyone so beautiful in my life before," said a tall man with long black hair. "Unfortunately, I feel like I'm never going to meet anyone as pretty as them," said a young man who looked unkempt. "I think you might be right," the tall man replied. "Did you see all the guards with them? They have to be very important to warrant that kind of security." The people waiting at the airport were discussing animatedly. When they heard that someone had leaked information, they all perked up their ears and started gossiping. You don't know, right?" a short man sneered. "You guys aren't important enough, so I can't tell you about it. Maybe if you work hard, you could be half as important as any of those beautiful women, and they might look your way." Everyone was dissatisfied. "You act like you know them all personally." "I'm only telling you the obvious facts. If you don't appreciate it, then forget what I said anything." The people at the airport were all attracted by the people Chelsea had brought, but they ignored Fallon and his group. In front of everyone's eyes, Chelsea's beauty group was something to behold. Not only were the people waiting at the airport dumbfounded, Fallon and his entourage were also dumbfounded. "Brother, there are so many pretty girls," shouted one of the younger henchmen. "My eyes are dazzled. How many of them are there?" asked another. Fallon said angrily, "All of you behave. You guys have seen beautiful women before. Stop acting like you have never seen one before." "No, brother, these are different women," whispered the younger henchman. Those who stayed in the Star Moon Entertainment headquarters were all newly recruited from Maryland University. Furthermore, Chelsea was also very strict with the choice of these beautiful employees. Those who had a bad reputation would be rejected. Others might not be able to flex their power, but she was the president of the student union in Maryland University. She had almost all the students in the school under her control, and the girls even more so. Therefore, these people were all studying hard in school. This was already very rare. What was even more difficult was that Chelsea had almost run out of candidates, and the best had been packed into Harry's entertainment company. This caused the attitude of the other companies that were recruiting to jump. The best of the best were all poached by Harry's company. Seeing his carefully planned appearance being ruined just like that, Fallon was furious. But when he saw the appearance of so many beautiful women, the anger in his heart gradually turned red hot. Although Fallon did not lack beautiful women in his life, these women stole his thunder. He was angry with them, but after staring for a while, he had decided something. Chelsea, who was arranging for all the employees to get into the buses, did not know that they had already become the focus of everyone's attention. It was something she was used to. She was a beautiful woman, and having busloads of beautiful women would definitely turn some heads. It would be abnormal if they weren't noticed. Seeing so many beautiful women get into their buses and leave the airport, the passengers at the airport all sighed. Fallon's crew could not hold it in anymore and started to get rowdy. "Fallon, we can't let them run away. Let's follow them and see where they are going," someone said in distress. "No way. We came here to take care of some business with Fallon. Let's not get distracted." "You're just pretending to be serious," someone said angrily. "Stop arguing," Fallon shouted and pondered for a while. He felt that it would not be easy to find clues about the Green Mountain jade vein in Florida in a short period of time. He had brought his little executives to have some fun. They had already arrived in the state, and they had even bumped into so many beautiful women. This was simply fate. "Everyone, get in your cars and follow those buses," Fallon instructed. "Oh yeah," all the followers cheered in unison. "Fallon understands us. Quickly get in the car and leave," a subordinate ordered. After a wave of bootlicking cheers, everyone jumped into their cars and chased after the bus fleet in the distance. Because they had to go from the airport to the port, they had to pass through the city of Miami along the way. Such a huge fleet of cars attracted the attention of passers-by. Just the number of luxury buses alone was staggering, followed by over 100 super sports cars. This wasn't something that could be seen every day, maybe once in a lifetime. "What the heck? Why are there so many luxury cars?" an old woman said. "Could it be that a rich person is getting married? This is a wedding motorcade?" said a bright-eyed young woman. "Are you stupid? Don't wedding cars have to be pasted with wedding letters? At the very least, they have to be decorated with ribbons or something like that. These buses don't look like wedding buses at all," said her boyfriend. The first car driving in Fallon's motorcade was the most impatient one among them. They followed them from the airport all the way to the city. They were about to pass through the city and reach the port. Now was the only chance to stop these beautiful women from getting away. The accelerator was pushed hard against the floor, bringing out the surging power of the supercar. The engine roared as it began to rapidly shuttle through the traffic. The supercars following behind didn't know what else to do, so they followed him out of habit. In the end, over 100 sports cars directly passed the bus fleet and blocked their way. In the lead bus, Chelsea was sitting with Harriet and chatting. The topic that they talked about the most was the development of the new company. There was also Harry. As they were about to start the conversation, the bus suddenly stopped. Everyone on the bus was caught off guard and fell into chaos. "What's wrong?" Chelsea stabilized her body and asked. The driver said angrily, "I don't know, there is a large group of sports cars blocking our path." Chelsea looked at the front of the bus. As expected, there were countless luxury sports cars in front of the bus. They were lined up and blocking the entire road so no traffic could get by them. "What are these people doing? Why did they come to block the road for no reason?" "That's right. Are they crazy?" the woman on the bus complained. "No, these people seem to have been following us since the airport," someone said. Chelsea listened to the discussion and her face was unsettled. The sudden situation made her feel a little lost. She did not know how to deal with it in a short period of time. At this time, the leader of the Wolf Guard, who was following the guards, walked into the bus. He looked at Chelsea and said, "Director Chelsea, please tell everyone that it is best that no one gets out of the bus to avoid any accidents." Chelsea was stunned and said, "Accident? What kind of accident?" The leader looked at the dazed women in the bus and smiled helplessly. "It's just some nonsense. Let us handle it." After saying that, he got out of the bus and signaled the driver to close the door. The leading guard was smart. He knew what they were thinking when he ran over to block the road. He had already realized that these rich people had been following them from the airport. Their goal was clear. They were here to chase more beautiful women. Chelsea and Harriet, who were inside the bus, looked at each other for a while and finally understood what had happened. Harriet said, "This is really funny. Why did this kind of thing happen?" Chelsea said, "I originally thought that I would be able to smoothly arrive at the new company. In the end, I am still met with trouble, but I really did not think that it would be this kind of trouble." Sigh. "As long as the boss doesn't feel that we are giving him trouble all day long," Harriet said helplessly. Chelsea nodded. "Let's see if those wolf guards can handle it first." After saying that, she started to pay attention to the situation outside the bus. Because it was a little noisy outside on the big road, plus the girls on the bus were also chattering non-stop. Chelsea could only see the situation outside, but could not hear the conversation between the two of them. but just by looking at the expressions of the conversations, it could be understood that the conversation was not pleasant. It was likely that they would not be able to reach an agreement. The captain of the Wolf Guards team was currently standing in front of a sports car and discussing with one of the people in the blockade. "Why have you blocked our path, my friend? Are you going to let us go?" It was a seemingly simple question, with as much kindness as could be used in this kind of situation. "What's with the kindness? Don't try to be friendly with me. What are you going to do about it if I block the road? I'm not even here for you." "That's right. Who do you think you are? Are you qualified to interfere in our matters?" A subordinate chimed in. "Go back to where you came from. Don't delay me from getting down to business," said someone from the back seat. Two people came out of the car and chimed in. Although these rich people's actions were arrogant, they were not completely useless. They could tell with a single glance that this captain of the Wolf Guard wasn't someone important. At most, he was a high-level worker. No matter how good a worker was, he was not someone they would have to respect. The difference in their status was like a difference between heaven and earth. Therefore, they didn't even look at the squad leader of the Wolf Guard. They did not even have the intention to negotiate. These people from the Wolf Guard all had extraordinary abilities, plus they were working under Harry. There was no reason for them to think that they were only lowly guards for a rich snob. They were well respected and assumed others would see them and not make trouble. Their standards were high. Apart from Harry, ordinary rich people were nothing in their eyes. At this moment, facing these few rich people who were looking for trouble for no reason, the leader of this Wolf Guard squad who came to negotiate with them became angry. However, he also knew that Harry had told him to prioritize safety when he picked up Chelsea and the others. The captain really did not want to complicate things now. Moreover, it was not like these people did not have bodyguards following them. At this moment, they were all in the crowd watching the show and staring at them covetously. Thinking about how there were few people on his side, and how he still had to protect Chelsea and the other girls, the captain took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He forced a smile on his face. "Sir, we have urgent matters to attend to. Can you make a path for us so that we can go?" Even though he spoke with such a good tone, the rich people did not have any intention of giving in. A few of them calmly leaned against the car and slowly lit a cigarette and blew out a smoke ring. Only then did one of them say, "If you want to leave, we want you to leave as well. The problem is that the car in front of us is broken and can't run anymore." The captain smiled and said, "With such a wide road, even if one car is broken, it's impossible to block the entire road. Don't make things difficult for a small figure like me." "Huh, at least you know your own limitations. Look, you're lucky that I'm even talking to you," said a subordinate with a cigarette in his mouth. "Then thank you." The squad leader sneered. "No need, you are really being polite," he replied. "Sir, we are really in a hurry. Please let us pass." The guard pleaded. "Didn't I tell you that the car in front of us is broken? No one can move. Actually, I think it is all the cars in the front that are broken. Do you think it is a coincidence?" The captain really wanted to punch him in the face. To be able to say such a lame excuse, he was treating him like a fool. The other rich people who were sitting in the car looked at the captain and said, "It's not like you're in such a hurry, right?" The people beside him also chimed in. "That's right. Is the beauty and the bus in a hurry? This matter is simple. Your bus can't drive on the sidewalk, but our car can." "Ha ha ha, that's right. Hurry up and get them out of the bus. We have so many cars here. We can lend you a helping hand. If we bring one or two of them each, won't that solve the problem?" At this moment, the group of rich people had gathered together. After saying that, they burst into laughter. They had been dawdling here for such a long time, trying to get the women into their expensive cars so they could be wooed. The rich people had done this kind of thing many times. It was a successful plan. Now it was clear that they wanted to pull the beauties on the bus to their cars. They were all experienced drivers and were very familiar with what to do next. There were very few girls who didn't love vanity. As long as they got into their car, there was nothing they couldn't get. The leader of the Wolf Guard squad took a deep breath and once again suppressed his anger. He said coldly, "Sirs, there is no way to discuss this matter today. Do you know who is the owner of these buses? Let me tell you this clearly. My employer is not someone to be trifled with. Look at your license plates. They are from another place. Let me give you a word of advice. Don't think too highly of yourself in Florida." The group of rich people looked at each other for a moment, then once again burst into laughter. "What a coincidence. I'm not someone to be trifled with either. Where is your employer? Why didn't he stretch his head out for us to see?" With such an attitude, the captain of Wolfguard knew that they could not continue the discussion. How could he possibly hand over the girls in the buses to these people? Since Mr. Parker was not present, he could not say too much. Thus, he lost the mood to talk and turned around to return to the bus. Seeing Chelsea, he helplessly said, "We can't continue the discussion. These people are relying on their strength to not speak. I am worried that I will cause trouble for Mr. Parker, so I can't use his identity to get them to move." Chelsea said, "You did the right thing. Now it seems that we still have to inform Harry." After saying that, she sighed and called Harry. Harry rushed over in a helicopter. He couldn't find a place on the street, so he landed on the roof of a shop near the street. Harry frowned when he saw the buses stopped by many supercars and a bunch of men wearing stupid clothes. At first, he thought 1 or 2 people were causing trouble, but who knew there were more than 100 people? The streets were now filled with supercars. Not only were Harry's company's buses blocked, even the other normal cars behind them also could not pass. The cars behind were mostly ordinary family cars. At first, they saw that the cars in front of them were not moving, but they were still angry. When they angrily came up and saw that there were so many supercars blocking the road, they became even more angry. One by one, they stopped. They angrily rushed over and quietly left. They did not dare to complain at all and could only think about venting their anger. It couldn't be helped. People knew that there was nothing they could do to get these people to move. Usually, when a supercar appeared, others would have to carefully avoid it, afraid that it would get scratched, and they would have to pay for the damages. But now, there are over 100 cars here. Just counting the total value of the cars, which was worth at least $1 billion combined, it was enough to make ordinary people tremble in fear. They were all small civilians at the bottom of society, and they knew when to get involved and when to bow their heads and wait for things to be resolved. If there was nothing to do, they absolutely could not provoke the rich people. These people had the temperament of wild animals. If they did not provoke them, the regular people would be fine, but once provoked, the rich people would bite. Fallon was surrounded by his followers. They had blocked the road on the street. Now it was chaos. As the instigators, they weren't worried at all. There was still time to succeed in their plan. One of the followers said, "Fallon, I went to the bus and took a close look. There were so many beautiful women on the bus. They looked so sweet that my heart itched." The other said, "What's the rush? We can have enough fun later." "Fallon should get first pick," said another. "I remember seeing 2 that definitely stood out from the rest," said a fat subordinate. "Didn't I already say that I will let Fallon choose first? Those 2 are definitely for Fallon," he shouted. Fallon had his eyes on quite a few of them. Standing in his position, he could clearly see what the people in the buses looked like. It was exactly as his brothers had said. They were all top-grade models, and the 2 women that were mentioned were undeniably the best of the best. Fallon was a little reluctant to give any of them to his followers. He wanted to keep the good ones for himself to enjoy. "Why are you guys so excited now? Keep your spirits up and watch. Don't let them run away," Fallon instructed. "Hey, Fallon, don't worry. They aren't going anywhere. Yes, we are blocking the way in front, and there are bodyguards blocking the way behind. There are also our bodyguards mixed in the crowd on the left and right. I guarantee that there will be no escape," the followers said confidently. Just as they spoke on the street, other than regular people in the crowd, the rest were the bodyguards who came to protect them. Fallon did not say anything else. Every time he went out, he would have at least 30 to 40 executives with him, and each of his executives had no less than 10 bodyguards with them. At this moment, he felt as if he was in control of the situation. Harry got off the helicopter. As he was rushing over, George, who was with him, received a call from the captain. George said, "Don't worry, Mr. Parker and I have arrived. We are just nearby and are rushing over to your side. There are 2 more teams that will arrive soon." After explaining to Chelsea, the captain who walked down the bus said with a bitter expression, "The situation seems to be a little troublesome. There are too many guards who are blocking the way." George was startled and asked, "How many are there?" "No less than 1,000. They're courting death." George couldn't help but curse. After hanging up the phone, he started to report the situation to Harry. Hearing that there were so many guards, Harry was also stunned for a moment. He couldn't help but ask, "Are these people that insecure? Why did they bring so many people with them to protect them?" Even Harry, who had nearly 6,000 elite warriors under his command from the Wolf Guard. Even Harry would only bring 2 or 3 of them with him when he went out. Most of the time, June would be the only one following him. The rest of them would either stay in the base to rest and train, or be in charge of the security of Harry's industry. Harry would only mobilize them at the last minute when he encountered a matter that required a large number of people. Seeing that this group of people needed so many guards, Harry couldn't help but laugh. George spread his hands. Who knows, maybe he thinks Florida is not safe, Harry scolded with a smile. There is no place in the whole country that has better security. He continued, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's think about how to solve the problem caused by these people first. George frowned and said, we have too few people here. I'm afraid we can't beat them all. Sir, why don't we gather more people from the Wolf Guard? Harry nodded. Yes, let's call some people here just in case. Once the other party doesn't let our people go and wants to act recklessly, we won't be at a disadvantage. Then, sir, please give the order personally. I'll go over and stall for time, George said. Fallon had brought a lot of people who had also brought their own personal security with them. Most of the time, this kind of strong arming was how Fallon and his group operated. Plus, they were from other places, so they could not be afraid of Harry. Therefore, George felt that it was best for Harry to wait in the distance for safety reasons. After all, it would take a long time to gather a large number of Wolf Guard reinforcements. First, they would be outnumbered by the enemy. Once they reached an agreement with the enemy, if they wanted to fight, not only would Chelsea and the others be in danger, but Harry would also be in danger. As Harry's personal guard, George could not let anything happen to Harry. However, Harry was not happy about it. How could he look his employees in the eyes when they see him caring about his own safety over their safety? He was a boss who did not even have the courage to personally deal with the danger for his employees. Why would they come all the way to Florida to work? No, under such circumstances, how can I stand aside and watch? Harry refused. But sir, there's no need to say any more. The situation isn't that bad. We can't think too badly about these people. I'll go and talk to them. Maybe there's still a possibility of a peaceful resolution. But it's too dangerous. What if... Don't worry about me. Didn't Lara follow us? Don't tell me you still don't believe in her strength. That's true. George was convinced by Lara's strength. If it wasn't for Lara, George and the others would have to face some troubles if they wanted to return safely during their last trip to California. Stop being so long-winded. Hurry up and call for some backup. I'll go over first. All right then. George could only compromise. Fallon and the others were getting impatient when they received the message. Although they had done something as domineering as blocking the entire street, they could not block it for too long. At this time, seeing the beautiful young ladies in the buses sitting peacefully gave Fallon the confidence to continue strong-arming. Through the window, they started to shout at the young ladies on the bus. Hey, beauty, don't wait any longer. Don't even think about passing through here today. Come to our car, said the tall man. Our car is a super sports car worth tens of millions. Why sit around on a crappy bus when you could come for a ride with me, said the short man. After waiting in the bus for so long, you must be thirsty and hungry again. Let's go. I'll bring you to a feast, said the fat man. Hurry up. I'll bring you guys to go shopping after the feast. You can buy anything you want. You can just swipe my bank card. Consider it my treat, replied the short man. Chelsea and the others stayed in the car and watched coldly as these clowns performed at the takeout power. Fortunately, when they had been interviewed, they were judged not on their merit, but on their constitution, and if they could be loyal. Working under Harry, they had seen a lot of luxury in upper-class circles. A sports car worth tens of millions was nothing. Harry had shown them and given them things that were worth many times that amount. Harry's private property alone was worth 1,000 of these supercars. Therefore, none of these girls were interested in this ridiculous flaunting. Some even closed the curtains next to them and pretended not to see these annoying men. Fallon and the others started to scratch their heads. What should we do, Fallon? These girls don't like us. Fallon sneered. With your methods of picking up girls, you will always be amateurs and fools. After saying that, he walked towards the car door. At this moment, the Wolf Guard, who was originally in charge of welcoming Chelsea and the others, had already split up. Everyone had their hands near the car door. Although there were over 100 cars this time, most of them were actually some of the equipment in the shipping company, documents, files, contracts, and stuff like that. There were only 5 buses full of girls. The other 2 buses were for male employees. They did not need to worry about their safety. The people who were blocking the road did not care about those buses at all. Fortunately, the dozen or so Wolf Guard members could still split up and guard the bus doors that led to the girls. Even if they were to make a move, they would still stop them. Unless they stepped over their bodies, they could not let other people get into the buses. When they saw the whole blockade, the leader of the group walked over. The leader of the Wolf Guard was a little nervous. Of course, it wasn't because he was afraid, but because he was worried that he wouldn't be able to stop them. "Brother, can we talk in private?" Fallon came to the front of the squad leader and said. The captain shook his head and said, "There is no one else here. If you have anything to say, just say it." "All right," Fallon went straight to the point and said proudly, "I want to go into that bus, but I think you will not be willing." The captain sneered and said, "You are right. My duty is to protect the people inside the bus, so don't even think about it." Fallon said disapprovingly, "Come on, you have to have a price, an amount you would like to take home, and let us be on our way. Your chance today is here. Name a price that you will take to let me into that bus." The followers beside him immediately cheered in unison and said in realization, "Fallon is more skilled. Why didn't I think of bribing these doorkeepers?" "Don't make a fuss about it. Even if you get into the bus, you won't be able to get a girl out of it." "You're looking down on me, right?" The leader of the Wolf Guard didn't care about these discussions. These disgusting people had already exposed their purpose. From the airport all the way to the street, they were blocking the road for the beautiful women. However, there was one thing that the captain had to admit. They had brought too many guards with them. It wasn't something that the few people in Wolf Guard could withstand. Therefore, after glancing at Fallon, the captain snorted coldly and said, "Sorry, I don't care much about money. This trick of yours doesn't work on me." He coldly rejected it and even threw the checkbook back to Fallon. This action made Fallon's followers furious. "You are just a little security guard. Why are you pretending to be someone important?" one of them said. "That's right. Put aside your pride and just take the money. You could live a comfortable life with the amount of money we can give you," said the fat executive. "Fallon, this idiot doesn't know how to appreciate favors. I think we should ask someone to drag him to the side and beat him half to death," the tall one said with a grin. Fallon raised his hand. He said to the team leader, "How could a person not love money? You're right. How about this? I'll give you $100,000 just to make you go away." After saying that, he took out a piece of paper from the checkbook and wrote down the amount. Then he tore it off and handed it to the captain. "Take it. Don't be shy. I know. For people like you who work, the most you can get in a month is $3,000. The squad leader gave Fallon a cold look. He didn't even look at the check in front of him. He shook his head and said, "You think you can bribe me with $100,000? What a joke. In my opinion, you are simply trash. I get paid more than just from my employer." Such rude words made Fallon, who was pretending to be a good person, change his expression. His followers even started to scold the captain. "You are so arrogant, aren't you? I gave you a chance, didn't I?" "Stop wasting time. Hurry up and call him over. Just kill him," said the fat executive. "I didn't like this guy from the beginning. If he was like this in South America, I would have cut him into 18 pieces, said the tall executive. "Cut the crap. Just kill him now. There are still so many young ladies in the car waiting for us to pay them our respects," said the ugly executive. Fallon pulled on his face. After a short pause, he suddenly smiled. "That's true. It was only $100,000. I was being stingy. I'll give you $500,000. You should be convinced now, right? $500,000 is not a small amount. It's enough for you to make a down payment for your house in your hometown in the county." The subordinate beside him said unhappily, "Fallon, why are you being so polite with a small security guard? Although $500,000 is not much, giving it to him is like feeding a dog." The squad leader had enough respect for Harry. He didn't expect that he would be scolded like a dog by this group of rich people today. Instantly, he was so angry that he couldn't stand it anymore. The team members beside him couldn't help but shake their shoulders and wanted to attack. Making the first move would give them the advantage. He was right in front of them, with his bodyguards behind him. If they controlled these people now, they could get on with their day. The captain saw through his subordinate's thoughts and quickly patted him on the shoulder, indicating that he should bear with it a little longer. Then he said to Fallon, "Sir, although I don't know who you are, you have really done something wrong today. The people in the buses work for a man who does not like it when his people have been inconvenienced. I suggest you move on before he arrives in force." "Hey, you actually threatened us. Your employer must be someone quite grand. Do you know who Fallon is? You would be scared to death if he told you who he was." Fallon's followers burst into laughter. Obviously, they did not take the captain's words seriously. These people were accustomed to getting what they wanted in South America. Their nature wouldn't change no matter where they went. Moreover, they thought that the Hugh family that gave them all their wealth was also there to give them some sense of power. It was common knowledge that the place the Hugh family operated in was poor and chaotic, and all kinds of weapons were open to the public. Their restrictions on weapons were ineffective and allowed many people to own very deadly devices. A jade mine was such a valuable thing that could be steadily and stably managed by the Hugh family for a few decades. They were a very powerful family. Therefore, after the captain of the Wolf Guard squad saw what their identities were, he decided to say as little as possible in order to avoid trouble. The last thing he wanted to do was have a big family come after Harry. George followed Harry's orders and started to call his men for reinforcements. Because the enemy had too many people, the Wolf Guard had to send out a large number of men to oppose them, because most of them were in the Reflecting Moon Island. It would take a lot of time for them to arrive. Therefore, George was very anxious in his heart. He was afraid that if they were late, Harry would be injured. On the other side, Fallon, who was in control of the situation, was very pleased with himself. Although his actions this time were a mess, he had done it on purpose. His goal was to show his strength. No matter who had the mine of the Green Mountain Jade, they would have to think twice before knowing that he had come to Florida. The strong rule the weak, and Fallon saw this as the only way to live in this world. His family was powerful, and if they wanted something, all they would have to do is bring their men in and demand whoever opposed them to leave. Although the information they had gathered was sparse, Fallon could basically confirm that the Green Mountain Jade came from Florida. He was very sure about this. After all, in the Jade Circle, the Hugh family had the most comprehensive knowledge on jade. No one could have more information about jade than the Hugh family. Such a large piece of jade cabbage was a rare item in the world, not to mention that it was carved from the best type of jade. Before this, he had never heard of such a carving. After some research, he saw how difficult it was to make, and that the hands who carved it were some of the most skilled in the world. Although Sean Livingston kept his mouth shut, the number of jade carvers in the world were limited, and most of them were in the Hugh family's business, which narrowed the list down significantly. All the clues pointed to Florida. This time, Fallon wanted to let everyone know that Fallon, who was at the top of the jade industry, had come to Florida with the intention of making a big scene. No matter who owned the Green Mountain Jade vein in private, they had to hand it over to the Hugh family, otherwise the Hugh family would destroy them. However, there was a limit to what Fallon could do. After waiting for so long, he felt that it was about time. He decided to throw away the money and bribe this little security guard. Then he would bring out all the girls on the bus and leave the rest for his underlings to enjoy. As for Fallon, his eyes were only focused on the two beautiful girls on the bus. Even though he had seen countless beautiful women, he was still amazed by those two girls. Chelsea and Harriet, who were on the bus, looked at the man who seemed to be the leader of the group outside. He kept looking at the two of them lustfully, and for some reason they felt disgusted in their hearts. "Chelsea, this guy's eyes are so disgusting. Why is he looking at us?" Harriet felt uncomfortable from being looked at. Chelsea also did not feel good and said, "Why else? He must be thinking of something dirty. Wait for Harry to come and teach him a lesson." In Chelsea's heart, Harry was omnipotent. He had saved her from a lot of troubles. Therefore, Chelsea had more trust in Harry than others. She felt that as long as Harry came, these evil people would not continue to be so arrogant. Tsk, none of these hooligans are good. They have no other thoughts in their heads all day long, as if they won't be able to live without a woman, Harriet said with disdain. Chelsea teased, "Then do you want to get out of the bus to charm him? I see that he has been staring at you." Harriet was unhappy. "What is it? He is staring at you." The two of them knew that Harry was about to arrive, so they did not feel nervous anymore. Instead, they were in the mood to laugh and chat. Fallon, who was outside the bus, saw the two beauties chatting and laughing. He could not hold back the anger in his heart. He didn't want to waste any more time with this security guard in front of the door. He opened his mouth and said coldly, "That's enough. Don't pretend to be a big man. It's just that you don't think I have enough money to satisfy your needs. I'll give you 1 million. Now open the door for me." Up until now, he thought that the captain in front of him was just an ordinary security guard. He had no idea that this captain was the most elite member of the Wolf Guard. Therefore, Fallon did not think highly of him. He felt that 1 million was a huge sum for a small security guard. However, he never thought that the loyalty of the Wolf Guard to Harry was not something money could buy. They had followed Harry through many life and death situations. Every member of the Wolf Guard was extremely loyal to Harry. Even if it was 2 million or even 10 million, it wouldn't be enough to buy the betrayal of the Wolf Guard. The expression of the captain became ice cold. He said to Fallon, "Don't even think about it. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you have some money. Dream on. Your wealth is nothing compared to my employer's." "Fallon, let's not waste any more time with him. Hurry up and call our men over. Just open the bus door by force. How can a small security guard like him have the ability and qualification to stop us?" said the fat executive. Fallon's men said unhappily. They had been holding back the captain's rude words for a long time. Fallon had completely lost his patience. He said to the team leader with a cold face, "You are very stupid. Not only did you miss a chance to make a fortune, but you also completely offended me. You will live to regret your actions here today." The captain said disdainfully, "I never regret what I say. I'll only regret my actions if I take your money." Fallon was so angry that he laughed. He nodded. "Very good." After saying that, he stepped back and ordered the bodyguards who had followed him, "Drag him away and open the door for me." "Yes, sir." When his bodyguards were in South America, they had long been accustomed to Fallon's unreasonable style of dealing with problems. Now that they had received the order, they would complete their task, no matter how brutal. They did have to be careful with the women on board, but the small security guard could be beaten to a pulp. Thus, the bodyguards did not hold back at all when it came to attacking the little captain. They rolled up their sleeves and prepared to fight. At the same time, more than 10 of them went up at the same time, preparing to make their employer happy. Now that there were so many beautiful women on the bus, if they were to bring the Fallon, they would be rewarded handsomely. The captain looked at the dozen or so security guards with a contemptuous gaze. His expression was filled with disdain. This attitude had angered these bodyguards. They were the high-end bodyguards of the Hugh family. They were all elites who had received the most rigorous training. The group of Fallon's bodyguards had cold smiles on their faces as they walked towards the captain step by step. The squad leader also knew that there was no room for negotiation. Seeing these people approach, the squad leader slowly clenched his fists. As one of the most powerful and proud Wolf Guard, he would not let these hooligans past him. Moreover, he was not afraid of a fight that was not in his favor. It was not like he had never experienced it before. It has happened a few times. Thus, when he saw the bodyguards coming at him, the captain wasn't afraid at all, nor was he going to flee. Instead, he stood up straight and also took out a baton from his waist. He began to swing it expertly around his body, causing the attackers to think before striking. The Wolf Guard squad captain was very happy to flex his skills. He always enjoyed fighting, because he had long been fed up with discussing with these people in a friendly manner. It was about time they began to attack. The captain was getting bored. When the other Wolf Guard's captains saw that their squad leaders were preparing to fight, they would naturally be indifferent. The Wolf Guard's neat movements immediately made the bodyguards who were rushing over feel stifled. They were not blind. Previously, they could not see clearly from afar. Now, when they walked in, they realized that although there were only a dozen of the Wolf Guard, it was obvious that they outclassed Fallon's men. However, at this moment, they did not panic at all. Their eyes were filled with endless killing intent. They had deep-set eyes that were of men who had seen plenty of death and pain, a look on their face which only came with coming close to losing one's own life. This look sent shivers down a few of Fallon's men's spines. Although this invisible killing intent could not be seen, it did exist in the eyes of these bodyguards. It was not something any of them had really experienced. They lived moderately pampered lives as they had no real competitors. They ate, slept, and drank merrily until they were called to rough up a few business owners. Just the temperament of the Wolf Guard alone was enough to make Fallon's men lose their will to fight. Unfortunately, Fallon's orders had to be carried out. The bodyguards could only put their lives on the line. They were still feeling lucky in their hearts. They had more people, and there was no reason for them to be at a disadvantage. Thus, they rushed forward, roaring like wild animals. "Bah, what a bunch of trash," the captain couldn't help but complain. Fallon said with a vicious expression, "I'm going to beat you to death soon, but you still refuse to admit defeat? You are simply an idiot," Fallon's underling echoed. Just as they were about to fight, an angry shout suddenly came from the side of the road. "All of you, stop!" Fallon's bodyguards stopped in their tracks and turned around. When they saw a strange man, they looked at each other. "Hey, who is this? Do you think you're some kind of hero? I want to see if you have the courage to come down here and fight." Fallon's security guard couldn't help but mock. "Scram to the side. The big men don't have time to bother with you right now," one of the security guards said. Harry smiled coldly. "You blocked my motorcade and you want to fight my men. You guys are really brave." "Your motorcade?" Fallon said in surprise. The employees of Star Moon Entertainment in the buses cheered when they saw Harry. "The boss is here," one of the models said. Chelsea and Harriet also looked at each other, and their eyes could not hide their joy. At the same time, they thought, he can finally vent his anger. Having been stuck here for more than an hour, they still had to endure and not say anything. Now, with Harry here, they all had a backbone. Some of them could not hold it in anymore. They opened the window and shouted at Harry, "Boss, they bullied me!" Harry smiled. "Don't worry, I will avenge you." The beauties on the bus cheered. After Harry greeted them, he set his eyes on the group of rich people. He said with a cold smile, "Where's the leader? Come here and let me have a look." As soon as Harry appeared, all the limelight was snatched away. Furthermore, his words showed that he looked down on Fallon and the others. They had been holding back their anger for a long time. When they heard Harry's question, Fallon stood out and said, "What's wrong? I wanted to block your convoy." His security guard also shouted, "Not only do we want to block your motorcade, we also want to play with the women in the motorcade. What can you do?" Harry smiled. "Nothing much. If you dare to touch my people, the rules are that we break your legs and throw you into the sea to fend for yourself." Fallon pretended to be surprised and said, "Wow, what a big, strong man you are. But do you have the right to be so arrogant? I am Fallon Hugh of South America. I have lived so long, but I have never met anyone who dared to be so arrogant in front of me." Harry smiled and said indifferently, "What a coincidence. Me too." Fallon's underlings sneered at Harry. They didn't care about Harry's identity at all. No matter how high in status he was, how could his be higher than Fallon's, even if he had some strength? They had over 100 people on their side, and the successors of over 100 families. No one would be able to shake their power if they joined forces. This was also the reason why they had the confidence to run amok. Not only in South America, but even in Florida, they were fearless. Moreover, there were only a few people following Harry. There was also a beautiful girl with delicate skin. He was even more unaware of Harry's ability to turn the tables. Fallon nodded his head and said, "Not bad. I like to see people as stubborn as you. When you run away with your tail between your legs, it will be even sweeter. Surround him and beat him to death. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility." His bodyguards surrounded Harry with ferocious smiles on their faces. At this moment, the passers-by who were watching the show on the street were scared. If they were caught in the crossfire, they would die a tragic death. "Fallon, don't kill all of them. At least keep that beauty alive." Harry's appearance didn't surprise Fallon and the others. In any case, he wasn't someone they cared about. However, Laura, who was following behind Harry, made these people's eyes light up once again. They all sighed in admiration at Harry's luck with women. Why was he able to capture all the beautiful girls? But it didn't matter. In a while, all of them would be snatched away. They still had to thank Harry for taking the initiative to bring all the girls to their doorstep. Fallon's underlings started to argue over which girl would be theirs. Laura's appearance was the culmination of people who thought about what made the perfect woman. Stephen heavily influenced the design process. When designing Laura, after confirming that it was a woman's appearance, Stephen and the others decided to make a face that combined the strengths of all the beauties in the world and matched the perfect golden ratio. Thus, Laura's appearance was designed this way. It could be said that it was absolutely perfect. In Harry's opinion, this kind of appearance didn't surprise him, because there were countless beautiful women around him, especially June and Celeste. Their otherworldly beauty made Harry immune to beautiful women and their unique charm a long time ago, especially that otherworldly temperament. It was something Laura didn't have. After all, it was just a robot. No matter how high its intelligence was, there was no way it wouldn't make any difference. Although her appearance was beautiful, if she didn't have a soul, she would still appear very empty. Harry was used to it. However, the others were different. Fallon and the others had seen a lot of beautiful women, but they had never met any as pretty as Laura. Now that they saw Laura's existence, they were immediately shocked. They would not know that this was merely a metallic body without a soul. Fallon had placed his attention on Harry from the beginning. When he heard the requests of his disciples, he shifted his attention to Laura. He was also stunned for a moment. Then he shouted out loudly, "Stop arguing, I want this one too." Sigh. The group of underlings immediately sighed. However, it was useless to complain. They had to appease the Hugh family and take what they could get. Seeing how arrogant they were, Harry laughed angrily. "I didn't want to argue with you guys too much. Unfortunately, your arrogant behavior is too disgusting." "Ha ha, is that so? You won't have the chance to be disgusted even if you want to. Beat him. Fallon gave the order. His bodyguards moved out at the same time and surrounded Harry. Ah, boss, be careful, screamed one of the models. Harry, don't fight them head on, screamed another. They have a lot of people. Don't fight them head on. When the girls on the bus saw that they were really fighting, they were instantly frightened. Fallon had the confidence to cause trouble here. It was not only because of his family background, but also because of the bodyguards he had brought over. They were all elites raised by his family. Fighting was a common occurrence, and it was a piece of cake for them. The people he usually protected who came to invade the mine were much more ruthless than anyone in Florida. After giving the order, Fallon started to laugh wildly. He didn't think that Harry would have the chance to stand up under the siege of so many subordinates. I'm going to beat you until you call me Daddy. If you're afraid of death, then hurry up and call me Daddy. Perhaps I'll spare you once I'm in a good mood, Fallon said arrogantly. His group of underlings had even more arrogant expressions on their faces, as if they were waiting to see a good show. No one felt that what they had done today was not too much, because they had done more things than this in South America. However, in the next moment, they really saw a good show. It was a pity that the process wasn't satisfactory. Fallon and the rest of the rich people were all moving their necks like old hens, their eyes wide open in disbelief. What? Said the tall executive. How is this possible? Said the fat executive. Under the siege of countless bodyguards, the outcome they expected did not appear. They had originally thought that Harry would be so scared that he would hold his head and squat on the ground, and then be held down by the bodyguards. Who would have thought that Harry did not even move from the beginning to the end? There was a faint smile on his face, as if he was mocking them. He stood firmly on the spot. Fallon wasn't there at all. They were so scared that their legs were trembling. On the contrary, the beauty behind Harry was like a human tank. Facing so many bodyguards, protecting in front of Harry was simply airtight. From time to time, she would grab a bodyguard and throw him out of the circle. This was a sturdy bodyguard. Each of them weighed no less than 180 pounds. Just like that, they were tossed by Lara like a little chicken, and they flew more than 10 meters in one throw. Looking at Lara, they did not think she weighed more than 100 pounds and couldn't put that much force behind her throws. Fallon and the others had paralyzed faces. No matter how hard they thought about it, they could not figure out what kind of woman had so much strength. Could it be that they ran into a female superhero or a female Spider-Man? Seeing such an unbelievable scene, Fallon could not stay calm anymore. This was simply a one-sided blow. None of the bodyguards was a match for Lara. If it wasn't for the fact that these bodyguards were all loyal subordinates of the enemy, Fallon would have thought that they had been bribed and were cooperating with Harry to put on a show. And with Lara killing so many people, Chelsea and the others on the bus were even more shocked. Just now they were worried about Harry, but now it seemed that Harry was indeed invincible. When the beauties on the bus saw how awesome Lara was, they were a little jealous. It was so blissful to be able to stay by their boss's side. Even though it was Lara who had started the massacre, it wasn't Harry, but the beauties still gave countless flying kisses to Harry. George and the others didn't stay idle either. Lara sent all the people who had rushed over flying away. A few of them specially stared at those people who wanted to take advantage of Lara's lack of attention and go after them. The captain who was guarding the entrance of the bus felt his blood boil as he watched. He also wanted to go up and show off. Unfortunately, he still remembered that his duty was to keep an eye on the people on the bus. He could not make a single mistake. He could only watch regretfully as his colleagues slaughtered the scum of the earth. Lara was acting like a Valkyrie. The goddess of war descended from the sky, and everyone's eyes fell to the ground in shock. No one would have thought that such a delicate beauty was actually an expert with extraordinary strength and agility. What was even more terrifying was that it was as if she wasn't afraid of being beaten. Under the siege of so many bodyguards, it was not as if no one had not ruthlessly hit Lara with the baton in their hands, or even on her head. However, she acted as if nothing had happened. She did not even blink. She had just been hit by the baton, so she immediately retaliated with a punch. No matter how strong the bodyguard was, as long as he was hit by Lara's attack, he would either fall to the ground on the spot, foaming at the mouth and not get up, or fly into the air and fall unconscious on the spot. "Monster! Monster!" Fallon's underlings cried out in shock. Apart from being a monster, they could not think of any other words to describe Lara's current appearance. The baton in the bodyguard's hand looked inconspicuous, but it was a real metal stick. If it hit a person with full force, if it was not a vital point, it could still cause serious injuries. If it hit a vital point, if it was more serious, it would really kill. Even elite guards who specialized in fighting back did not dare to take a hit. But under the watchful eyes of everyone, Lara's body was hit countless times by the baton. However, she was still full of vigor. If she was not a monster, then what was she? Fallon also panicked, because the street, although it was spacious, it was actually full of cars. Although his bodyguards numbered in the hundreds, it was impossible for them to surround Harry and a few others. They could not use their full strength, so only the first 20 or so people could surround them and fight. Unfortunately, in the blink of an eye, all of them were lying on the ground. The bodyguards behind them were also considered tough, and they were not scared at all. Seeing their colleagues being knocked down so quickly, even though they were shocked by Lara's skills. However, they still charged forward one after another, relying on the number of people they had to rely on to slowly exhaust Lara's strength. No matter how anyone fought, there was always a time when their strength would be exhausted. Lara was different and would even throw people away from time to time. This kind of action consumed the most strength. Fallon panicked and said, "Go! All of you go! It's fine even if you step on the roof of my car. All of you attack!" When the other bodyguards who were blocked outside heard their boss's order, they didn't care if they stepped on these sports cars worth tens of millions. All of them jumped onto the roof of the car while shouting and stepped all the way toward Harry. But Lara was like a human meat grinder. No matter how many people came, it was useless. They would still be beaten up and there would be no other result. Over 1,000 elite bodyguards surrounded and attacked, but they were unable to harm even a hair of Harry. George and the others cooperated very well with Lara. Lara was in charge of attacking, and no matter how many people came, they would all be defeated. George and the others were in charge of being simple and crude. As long as Lara didn't care about the small number of fish that slipped through the net, they wouldn't be able to take another step forward when they arrived at George's place. The few of them took turns to attack with ease. Fallon originally wanted to rely on the advantage of numbers to exhaust Lara's stamina, but his little plan failed here. They had been fighting for half an hour. His bodyguards fell to the ground and even piled up into a human wall. Lara's movements were still very fierce, and there was no sign of exhaustion at all. Some of the bodyguards were even scared out of their wits. Originally, there were more than 1,000 bodyguards. It wasn't just the might of the Hugh family. There were also some of his subordinates who came with him. These people's abilities could only be said to be average. The main family's will to serve was also not like Fallon's bodyguards, who were unafraid of death. When they saw that they were going to deal with such an extraordinary monster, most of them had already given up. They had been hiding in the outer perimeter, but they did not dare to go forward and take this beating. Those who suffered Lara's counterattack were all Fallon's main force of bodyguards. They were also the ones who suffered the most injuries. At this moment, there were nearly 200 people who were lying on the ground and unable to get up. Such a terrifying result, anyone who saw it with their own eyes would be horrified. "Fallon, let's go." One of the underlings swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said with difficulty, "We can't defeat her, this girl is too terrifying." The number of bodyguards lying on the ground increased. More and more of them had long lost the desire to continue fighting. Each and every one of their eyes were wandering as they prepared to find an opportunity to escape. If they really let these scared bodyguards escape, then there wouldn't even be anyone to cover Fallon and the others. If they ran now, they could still take advantage of the fact that Lara was tied up by the bodyguards and couldn't escape. At least they could leave. If they ran any later, they really didn't have the confidence to run out of the palm of this humanoid tank. The younger guards were scared, and so was Fallon. However, he had come to Florida to cause a huge ruckus, and in the end, he was beaten up and would be sent back like a dog. After all, what he was worried about now was his life. Fallon, who had always thought highly of himself, had never suffered such a huge loss. But the problem was that he was not in South America. He was in Florida. This was not his territory. If he used up all these bodyguards, no one would be able to protect him. On Harry's side, with Lara's fierce performance, there were already very few people who dared to stick their heads forward and take a beating. They just surrounded her and waved to their staff. From time to time, they would jump a few times to show their existence. At the same time, relying on the last bit of courage left, they barely managed to muster up their courage. But if they did not attack, Lara would just protect Harry and not move. With George by his side, it wasn't that Harry didn't dare to fight back. He ordered, "Lara, just let go and fight. Don't worry too much about the safety of my people." "Yes, sir. Initiating attack mode," Following Lara's response, she pulled out 2 electric batons from the sides of her thighs. They were both made of metal, and they were about half a meter long. There was even a device at the top that released high-voltage shocks into her opponent. It could be used as a normal stick, and it could also release high-voltage electricity. The electric baton that Lara carried with him was directly connected to her energy core. Continuously releasing electricity for tens of thousands of times wouldn't be able to exhaust the energy of her internal power core. With such a powerful weapon, Fallon's bodyguards' faces all changed. All of them were so scared that their facial muscles were extremely twisted, especially the group of people standing at the front. They were so scared that they even peed their pants. It turned out that they were just defending now. If they took the initiative to attack, wouldn't it be even more terrifying to the heavens? Who would have the courage to continue fighting with a monster like her? She instantly howled and scattered in all directions. Unfortunately, the outside was still tightly blocked by the inner and outer layers. They couldn't run away even if they wanted to. Fallon and his men were so scared that they wet their pants when they saw that the girl beside Harry was so fierce. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of bodyguards were knocked down by this beautiful woman. This was totally illogical. It was just like acting in a movie. It was not realistic at all. Fallon even rubbed his eyes hard, thinking that he was hallucinating because he didn't have a good rest. The follower next to him was even more furious. He pinched the fat on his thigh desperately, trying to wake him up from his sleep. He thought that he was having a nightmare. It wasn't just Fallon and the others. Even the employees of Harry's Star Moon Entertainment were stunned by what they saw. In the beginning, when they saw how fierce Lara was, they thought it would be like beating up a mouse. However, as time passed, everyone could tell that something was wrong. No matter how powerful and well-trained a person was, she would still be able to take down a dozen or 20 people by herself. It was also possible that this was already the limit of a human being. But now, there were hundreds of people who had fallen to Lara's punches and kicks. They were not ordinary people, but the well-trained bodyguards of rich people. Every one of them was a burly man who could beat people up. They looked very strong. Was Lara still human? Everyone was thinking about this in their hearts. They could not figure it out. They did not know that they felt that Lara did not seem like a human being. In fact, they had already found the answer. Lara was indeed not a human being, but the ultimate robot that Harry spent $5 billion to build. It just looked more like a human being on the outside. With such a bewitching appearance, it was very easy for others to ignore Lara's strength from the start. Although Chelsea and Harriet were the earliest people to follow Harry, and were now part of the higher management, the two of them had been in Maryland for a long time and had been away from Harry. Therefore, they knew nothing about Harry's current situation. In the past, they knew that June, who was closest to Harry, was very good at fighting, but it was also within the acceptable range. However, he never would have thought that today, Harry came to rescue them. He did not bring June with him at all, but a girl they did not know. The key was that this girl was too shocking. She was just like a female martial artist master. Everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. It was already terrifying enough without Lara. This strength that could casually throw a person a dozen meters away was simply not something a girl could have. Perhaps the world weightlifting champion had such great strength, but the key was that the weightlifting champion had a body full of muscles. As for Lara, she was the same size as June. Her appearance looked soft and weak, not eye-catching at all. However, when she fought, she was a fierce one. This completely subverted everyone's worldview. Fallon first stared at his bodyguards with his eyes wide open, as if he was sweeping away fallen leaves in the autumn wind. They were all cleaned up by a mere female bodyguard. Then, just like his underlings, his eyeballs and jaws fell all over the floor. As more and more people were knocked down by Lara, his bodyguards became more and more frightened. Fallon could not stand anymore, and his legs began to tremble uncontrollably. His entire body was drenched in a cold sweat. The followers beside him were even worse. Some of them collapsed onto the ground, and the least they could do was mutter to themselves as they pulled the monster back with their hands. Harry watched Lara's battle performance calmly. It had to be said that from his point of view, it was full of artistic beauty. However, Fallon and the others did not think so. At this moment, what they wanted to do the most was to find a remote place to change their wet pants. "Fallon, run, run! If you don't run, it will be too late." Fallon's security guard was quite loyal. He did not sell his teammates out at critical times. At least he still remembered to tell his boss. The other one also advised, "Fallon, this is not a human. We can't beat her. No matter how many people there are, it won't be enough. This is a human meat grinder. Some of them collapsed immediately. After howling, they turned around and ran. They did not dare to stay in this terrifying place any longer. They were afraid that if they stayed a second longer, they would be targeted by this humanoid meat grinder. In the next second, the ones lying on the ground might not be those bodyguards but themselves. "Yes, run," Fallon stammered. At this moment, he was feeling incomparably vexed and regretful. He thought to himself, "My life is really bad. How did I end up provoking such a disastrous star?" He was even more confused. It wasn't that he had never been to Florida before, but he had never seen or heard of a figure like Harry. However, it was too late to say anything now. Fallon had the confidence to do so. In Harry's eyes, those thousands of bodyguards were nothing but a bunch of weaklings. They couldn't pose any threat to him at all. The identity that Fallon was so proud of could not pose any threat to Harry at all. Even from the beginning to the end, after Harry found out about Fallon's identity, he acted as if he did not care at all. At first, everyone thought that it was because Harry's knowledge was shallow and that he didn't know how powerful the Hugh family of South America was. But now, after seeing the ferocious guard Lara, Fallon knew that Harry's identity was not to be trifled with. Perhaps he was even more powerful than his family. He could easily figure it out with his feet and fingers. Such a powerful guard was not even available in the Hugh family. However, Harry had one. Wasn't this enough to explain the problem? Thinking of this, Fallon's intestines began to churn. But there was no medicine for regret in this world. It was too late to regret provoking Harry now. It was better to think about how to get out of here. Fortunately, his bodyguard team still had a few hundred people. Even though their morale had fallen to rock bottom, they no longer had the courage to face Lara. Fortunately, they could still hold on for a while with the advantage in numbers. In addition, this place was so crowded that not even a drop of water could leak out. Therefore, Fallon and the other rich people still had a chance to escape. Fallon saw that the situation was not good, so he admitted defeat. After stammering to the followers, he ran towards his sports car without saying a word. He didn't dare to stay in this place for another minute. If he stayed here any longer, he would lose his life. Fallon's life was very valuable. He couldn't lose it in this kind of place. Fallon's underlings reacted quickly. When they saw their boss start to run away, they naturally followed closely behind. Unfortunately, just as they started the engine of the sports car, they were stunned to find that the road ahead had been blocked. Fallon and the others were not particular. The reason why the sports car broke down was that it was parked on the street. They successfully blocked Harry's motorcade, but at this moment, they wanted to leave. But they had dug a hole and buried themselves in it. Due to the chaos, there was no order in the hundreds of sports cars. They were all in a hurry to escape from this place, but in the end, it was a mess, and none of the people could move. They could only wait for the cars in front to get away before the cars in the back could move. The problem was, the sports cars in front of them wanted to run, but they couldn't. They had all gathered at the back of the bus motorcade, wanting to pull the girls into their cars. However, they didn't realize that the road in front of them had been blocked off. They had tasted their own medicine and the consequences of their reckless actions. What was even more terrifying was that not only were the roads blocked, but several large planes had also appeared in the sky and were circling at a low altitude. When Fallon and the others were startled by the loud roar of the aircraft's engine, they looked up at the sky and were all stunned. The rear doors of these large aircraft that had suddenly appeared were already open. Countless people jumped down from the aircraft and parachutes bloomed in the air. There were countless numbers of them. The reinforcements from the Wolf Guard had arrived. All of the Wolf Guard did not choose to come on a yacht. Instead, they used the fastest way to land on Harry's side by parachuting. Of course, the location of the parachute landing was random. It was possible that a little wind or something would cause a deviation from their intended landing location. However, it didn't matter anymore. When all the members of the Wolf Guard found out that Harry's motorcade was blocked and that Harry might be in danger, they were all determined to protect Harry. The enemies were a group of rich people who had suddenly appeared and blocked the road. More importantly, they had brought over 1,000 bodyguards with them. Harry only had a few people with him. Once a conflict broke out, the consequences would be unimaginable. As Harry's most loyal henchman, the Wolf Guard would never let Harry down, nor would they willingly put Harry in danger. Therefore, after receiving George's call to gather all the men, all the members of the Wolf Guard immediately took action. They would definitely not be able to arrive in time by boat. However, it didn't matter. they could still take off and disembark the aircraft in the training base of the Wolf Guard. All the members of the Wolf Guard were fully armed and took the aircraft to reinforce them. Of course, it was impossible to land a plane in the urban area. They could only choose to parachute down in squads. The randomness of the landing location was also the reason why the Wolf Guard sent out their full force. Even if half of their landing point deviated from Harry's position, it would still leave a large enough number to ensure Harry's safety. In terms of numbers, it was enough to suppress those who posed a threat to Harry. Therefore, this airborne operation wasn't a joke. When they landed, their first thought was to run quickly to Harry's side. When they saw Lara standing in the middle of a group of people, killing in all directions, these people from the Wolf Guard who had rushed over to help heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. Especially when they saw that Harry was safe and sound under the protection of George and the others, their worried hearts were finally relieved. Thus, the first group of people began to set up roadblocks in front of those sports cars that were completely impossible to break through, blocking all of these people. In the hearts of these Wolf Guards, anyone who offended Harry would never be able to escape. Even if they had wings and flew in the sky, they still wouldn't be able to escape. Fallon was on the verge of going crazy in his own car. He lost his composure and shouted, "What is this? Who is this person?" When his underlings saw that the road was blocked and they could not escape, they were all trembling with fear. "We're finished. Today we've really caused a huge disaster," said one who was bloodied. "I want to go home. Who can send me home? I swear that I will never come to Florida again. It's too terrifying," said one who had a broken arm. The Wolf Guard scared the rich hooligans to death. It was not like they had never played this game before. However, it was definitely the first time in their lives that thousands of people jumped out of a plane at the same time to attack them. Especially since these people had obviously come to support Harry. This made the rich people even more frightened. They really couldn't understand what kind of person they had offended. It was as if they had poked a hornet's nest. The densely packed parachutes covered the sky. It was a spectacular scene. Anyone who saw this scene would be scared to death, especially Fallon and the others. They knew that they were in big trouble today. In the country, they had never seen any family with such powerful strength. They could call for reinforcements directly, and there were thousands of them. Fallon's underlings had slowly recovered from all kinds of shock and were slowly getting used to the current situation. When the members of the Wolf Guard landed on the roof of their car, some of the more cowardly ones even came out of the car and knelt down on the ground. They bowed in front of everyone and held their heads with both hands, determined not to get up. They indicated that they would surrender and never oppose Harry again. Fallon's facial expression was constantly changing. He knew that he was going to be killed today. His reputation would not be guaranteed for the rest of his life. At this moment, he was in a dilemma. In the end, he would rather stay in the car and not surrender. Or should he learn from his compatriots and walk out of the car and kneel down in front of Harry, showing that he had already been convinced by Harry's power and status? Then Fallon would allow him to take whatever he wanted. What they didn't expect was that after the members of the Wolf Guard landed, they didn't care about them at all. The Wolf Guard had already surrounded this place. These rich people who dared to offend Harry couldn't run away even if they wanted to. The most important thing at the moment was to get rid of those bodyguards who were still besieging Harry. These people did not